Chapter 780. That voice of the spiritual tree clan gave a long sigh. His tone carried unprecedented vicissitudes of life. That is a form of tyrannical supreme Tao technique. It's a supreme Tao secret technique that only those at the genuine supreme Tao stage can train. It's rumored that when the god discarding door was open last time, it was acquired from the ruins of the gods. If this great vanishing golden bell aurora is trained to its peak state, it can even break through the restraints of the rules of the Tian land, soar to the Galaxia, and achieve the heavenly supreme Tao position. It's this powerful? Qin Wushuang secretly smacked his tongue. At his height, of course he knew that to the Tian land, the height of the heavenly supreme Tao stage was a myth. Even the most elite warrior of the Totem clan, regardless of King Cicada or this Golden Ray Dragon King, clearly they had not reached that height. To soar to the Galaxia, perhaps this was a knot in the mind of all martial artists in the Tian land. When this great vanishing golden bell aurora is activated, it will shoot out tens and thousands of golden lights. It appears illusory and destructive. Wherever it goes, it will be full of strangling power. Even if my spiritual tree clan has the clan protection formation, I am afraid 30% of it will be destroyed by him. The most terrifying part is that once the foundation of the formation is destroyed, the destructive power of the other elite warriors of the Dragon Clan will appear even more powerful. Therefore, for this battle, regardless, we must not allow them to break in. Once they enter, it will be the end of us. Qin Wushuang nodded silently, for he knew that this elder of the spiritual tree clan spoke the truth. Although that Golden Ray Dragon King did not hold any ill intentions towards him in the beginning. However, after this confrontation, Qin Wushuang did not feel that the leader of the Totem clan would continue to accommodate him. Initially at the Illusion Heavenly Lake, what did Senior King Cicada say? Most likely, the person with the graceful spiritual bow would be viewed as an enemy by the other Totem powerhouses. Although some words could not be completely trusted, clearly Senior King Cicada's words were not without evidence. This trip to the endless Eastern Sea had attracted so much hostility. Clearly, it was thanks to the graceful spiritual bow. Of course, Qin Wushuang would not blame the heavens and accuse others. He had already completely disregarded the dishonor brought by the graceful spiritual bow. Now, the only thing he considered was to break through all difficulties and return to the Heavenly Emperor Mountain, to take revenge on the Heavenly Emperor Gate and solve the Qin clan's predicament. Hence, the cooperation proposed by the Divine Tree clan. He did not even consider it and agreed. As long as he could keep his life, what would happen even if he were to turn this endless Eastern Sea upside down? This time, Qin Wushuang was going all out. Senior Divine Tree, let me remind you that Golden Ray Dragon King is so powerful. Even if I have a trump card, I'm afraid I won't be able to stop him from entering the hibiscus forest. Logically speaking, you really don't stand a chance. After all, you're only at the third calamity of the Coagulate Supreme Tao stage, while Golden Light Fuang is most likely at the 8th calamity of the genuine Supreme Tao stage. Although he could not break through the last barrier and soar to the Galaxia, without a doubt, he was already an elite warrior at the peak of the Tian land. If there are no accidents, even with this advantageous terrain, you won't be able to stop him. The voice of the Divine Tree clan sounded calmly. So you're saying that Senior Divine Tree has an unconventional method? Qin Wushuang could sense something from the other party's words. Not bad. Young people can see through it easily. Very smart. Very good. That aged voice said, if I didn't see you absorbing the potential of those supreme Tao elite warriors, I am afraid this unconventional method would not work. Yet now, this unconventional method has a 20 to 30% chance of success. Only 20 to 30% chance? Qin Wushuang could not but help to frown. When facing a warrior at the peak of the genuine Supreme Tao stage, it's enough for you to be proud of having a 50% chance. 20 to 30% chance across the entire Tian land. How many people would dare to say this? After some careful thinking, Qin Wushuang found these words to be reasonable. When facing a colossal figure at the peak of the genuine Supreme Tao stage. One spiritual thought could kill him. In comparison, it was as simple as an elephant stepping on an ant. Human, listen well. You have all the prerequisites for my unconventional method. Firstly, you must have the supreme Tao talent of the wood attribute. Secondly, you must have powerful endurance and enough potential. Thirdly, you must possess a powerful weapon. You seem to have all three of these points. Yes, you have already experienced the wood attribute talent when I absorbed the wood spirit essence, right? As for the second one, I don't know what the limit of my endurance is. As for the third condition, it's needless to say. Everyone knows the power of the graceful spiritual bow. Yes, according to my probing of you, the condition of your corporeal body has simply reached a monstrous stage. Your divine soul is like a bottomless pit with endless potential. I must say, in terms of potential, I cannot even probe your bottom line. Senior, you're not deliberately speaking such false praise to motivate me, right? Qin Wushuang asked to find joy in the midst of bitterness. Of course not. This is not child's play. If you can't do it, I will not tie the fate of the spiritual tree clan to a piece of trash. What a joke. Believe me, this is our only chance. If we want to get rid of today's disaster, this is the only way. Just tell me what to do. Qin Wushuang spoke with a tone of giving medicine to a dead horse. Inside your body, the spiritual wood essence has already formed, right? That's right. I have to thank you guys for this. Inside your body, there's also the scarlet flame, divine soul. Unfortunately, we cannot use this scarlet flame, divine soul. Today, we will only use your spiritual wood essence. Oh, how do I use it? The spiritual wood essence is a divine soul of the wood attribute. It is a type of divine Tao attribute formed around your divine soul. Your current essence is only at the beginning stage and still needs to grow. But if you can refine this spiritual wood essence to the realm of the spiritual wood essence, transformation supreme, Tao, elite warriors will be like floating clouds in front of you. And if you can reach the realm of the spiritual wood essence of creation, the great Tao will return to the origin, and that will be the realm of soaring through the galaxy, the realm of the origin of creation. Qin Wushuang asked in shock. That is out of reach. To be honest, I do not have the ability to help you reach the realm of the origin of creation. But the realm of the essence soul, I can still barely do it. Oh, how can I do it? It's very simple. I will teach you the green wood eternal spring mantra. This mantra is the most ancient inheritance of the tree of God clan. With this mantra, you can bring spring back to the earth, break the frost and ice, revive all living things, and regenerate withered grass. Together with the green wood eternal spring mantra, I can inject the endless wood attribute power of the tree of God clan into your Dantian in a short period of time, and raise your realm to the peak of the transformation supreme Tao realm, or even the genuine supreme Tao realm. Of course, this is only a short-term effect. Isn't that puffiness? Qin Wushuang smiled bitterly. Regardless of whether it is puffiness or not, it is a good way to solve the current problem. Will there be any sequelae? Qin Wushuang asked suspiciously. If it is other attributes, there may be, but the wood attribute is the most gentle among the 5 attributes. It has healing properties. The wood attribute also symbolizes vitality. So how can there be any sequelae? To you, it is a great opportunity. Although this strength is only short-term, it can also expand your Dantian realm and make your physical body realm more flexible and full of vitality, thus increasing your cultivation potential and making your future cultivation path smoother. Oh, is so magical? You don't know how lucky you are. How many people want to beg for the tree of God Clan's green wood eternal spring mantra? Once this mantra is mastered, it is impossible to estimate the benefits to the Supreme Tao Elite Warriors. An ordinary Supreme Tao Elite Warrior has to go through 9 major, minor, and minor calamities to advance to the next level. Every tribulation could destroy one's soul. This green wood eternal spring mantra can buffer the divine calamity and even weaken the divine calamity. To a Supreme Tao martial artist, The most dangerous thing is the supreme Tao calamity. And the reason why a supreme Tao elite warrior with the wood attribute has a higher probability of passing the calamity is because of the healing properties of the wood attribute. With this green wood eternal spring mantra, it can weaken your supreme Tao calamity by at least half. The probability of passing the calamity successfully is twice as high as others. Qin Wushuang sucked in a breath of cold air. How could he not know that in theory, Supreme Tao elite warriors were immortal and indestructible? But why were there so few surviving Supreme Tao warriors? At least 70 to 80% of the Supreme Tao warriors died from the Supreme Tao calamity. The rest were the ones who died in battles or accidents. These various benefits, once exposed, made Qin Wushuang's heart palpitate. No need to hesitate. All these benefits can be seen. There are still many unseen benefits. That voice continued. The wood attribute is an essential attribute for refining pills. Regardless of refining pills, cultivating spiritual herbs, or practicing medicine to help the world, it is a first-class advantage. For the people around you to have whatever calamities and diseases, a powerful wood attribute supreme Tao elite warrior, the benefits are self-evident. Most importantly, if you train to the realm of the divine wood primordial soul, this wood attribute talent will let you benefit endlessly for life. If you can comprehend the realm of the creation origin because of this, then it will be even more amazing. Qin Wushuang smiled leisurely and said, "You are a great lobbyist. Of course, even without these benefits, seeing that you and I are already in the same camp, this cooperation is inevitable. So you agree? Do I still have a way out?" Qin Wushuang asked leisurely in return. "Very good. Then you prepare. This time, the infusion of divine power is very pure. Although it is strong in the short term, after this, it is enough to let your divine power increase a lot. Perhaps after this battle, you will rise by 3 levels and enter the 6th tribulation or even the 7th tribulation of the Supreme Tao stage. I will not be surprised." Qin Wushuang smiled, his gaze fixed on that entrance, and said, "This matter should not be delayed. The battle array outside is almost set up. Are you ready? Listen to my chant. You have the divine wood primordial soul. Cultivating the green wood eternal spring formula is simply a piece of cake. Use what you learn now." Selling on the spot, this is really fresh. Qin Wushuang smiled mockingly. Listen to the chant well. That voice sounded leisurely and began to impart the technique. Qin Wushuang pricked up his ears and listened without missing a word. To be continued. If you want to know what will happen, please go to www.qitian.com. There are more chapters. Support the author. Support the original reading. Chapter 781. Around Qin Wushuang's body, bursts of green lights kept transforming into different strange shapes. Above his head, faintly, there was a towering tree that appeared to reach the sky. Countless tree vines extended from all directions, entangling Qin Wushuang's acupuncture points all over his body. Through these acupuncture points, streaks of rich divine wood power continuously poured in like rivers entering the sea. All the bones in Qin Wushuang's body felt a wave of satisfaction. This feeling was as comfortable as soaking in a hot spring. Among the 5 elements in terms of purity and vitality, the wood element is still the best. Qin Wushuang absorbed the divine power released by the divine tree clan to his heart's content, absorbing all of it into his dantian, and his realm was also invisibly rising and rising. To use an inappropriate analogy, Qin Wushuang was now like a balloon that was constantly being inflated. Although it was far from the point of exploding, it was obvious that this kind of fatness was definitely puffiness. Even so, this kind of powerful divine power aura still made Qin Wushuang experience the pleasure of his strength soaring. Absolute strength. They're here. They're here. The voice of the divine tree clan sighed softly. Human now, let's see if your thunderous attack can have a deterrent effect. Qin Wushuang's current strength had already been raised to the level where he could at least fight against a Sixth Tribulation Transformation Supreme, Dao expert. Adding the advantageous terrain and the invincible graceful spiritual bow, he was naturally full of confidence. With a glance, he could see that the first wave of attack was indeed those foreign cultivators. Qin Wushuang's heart trembled. Golden Ray Dragon King is indeed a formidable person. Under such circumstances, letting these people take the lead seems generous, but in fact, he's killing without spilling blood. He's using the greed of these people. Knowing that there's danger, how can these people refuse? Of course, Qin Wushuang would not have any sympathy for these people, even if they were only cannon fodder of the Dragon Clan. But no matter what, these people were here because they were driven by greed. They came to take Qin Wushuang's life. Such jackals and wolves could not be sympathized with. The graceful spiritual bow was raised, and the aura was activated. The rich divine wood aura merged with the golden light of the shooting sun arrow, emitting an enchanting aura. It was as if a golden divine dragon had been dragged out from the green clouds, emitting a brilliance that made one's heart tremble. Wake up! Qin Wushuang's heart sank. He had already raised the graceful spiritual bow. His body suddenly dashed forward. The vines around him actually cooperated with him and took the initiative to elongate. Qin's body, as if there were countless green arrows flying. Brothers, let's charge. Kill him. The 5 or 6 cultivators at the front all swung the weapons in their hands. Their weapons were powered by divine light, and they all turned into streams of light as they attacked Yishiwen. His of the dragon of his, of S of his is of the light of his of them. Just as these flowing lights were about to approach Qin Wushuang's body, countless green tree vines, like countless arms, suddenly raised and shot toward those flowing lights. These hundreds and thousands of tree vines soared into the sky in an orderly manner, forming a few defensive nets. They directly transformed into rays of dazzling green light and caught those flowing lights flying toward them. The green light flashed and collected those supreme Dao weapons, which fell to the ground one after another. Although these supreme Dao warriors were strong, they could not withstand the great number of Fuso trees. Thousands of tree vines, individually, naturally, could not compare to these supreme Dao attacks. But when they were superimposed, it was easy to dissolve these attacks. When those supreme Dao warriors saw such a strange thing, they finally knew why their companions had disappeared without a trace. At this moment, Qin Wushuang's figure had already dashed forward. Golden light flashed, and the shooting sun arrow gushed out, accompanied by a furious roar. Die! Swoosh, swoosh, swoosh! Several rays of golden light shot out continuously. Under the push of the green light curtain, these rays of golden light appeared even more ferocious. Their speed was even faster, and their momentum was even more ferocious. They directly rushed over. Be careful, this is the graceful spiritual bow. When Qin Wushuang had just entered the supreme Dao stage, the power of the graceful spiritual bow was already earth-shaking and deity-weeping. Now that his cultivation had increased substantially, its power had even reached the stage where the wind and clouds would change color and rivers and seas would flow backward. The tragic golden light tore the void and directly blasted in front of this group of martial artists. The first 3 martial artists were twisted by this golden light. With continuous miserable cries, they were instantly blasted into ashes and died. As for the remaining 3, in a panic, their trajectory was slightly slower and they were directly swallowed by the whirlpool in the space crack. They did not even have time to let out a miserable cry before they disappeared without a trace. Even Qin Wushuang drew a breath of cold air when he saw the space crack engulfing the supreme Dao opponent. Too powerful. In comparison, the power of using the graceful spiritual bow to kill people seemed to have dimmed a lot. Beautifully done. Victory in the first battle. The ancient voice of the divine tree clan sounded again. Qin Wushuang smiled. Now is not the time to be optimistic. The battle has just begun. After adjusting his breathing, He gently shook his arm and stretched his muscles and bones. He recalled all the shooting sun arrows that he had shot out. Qin Wushuang was still quite satisfied. This time, he had shot out 5 arrows in one breath. If it was in the past, it was obviously impossible to achieve such an effect by shooting 5 arrows in one breath. The attack power had increased by at least 3 to 5 times. It's indeed abnormal. Qin Wushuang was now very confident. Even if it was an elite warrior at the peak of the Transformation Supreme Dao stage, under such a terrain, he could completely shoot him back or even kill him. What made him most gratified was that the healing and recovery power of the wood attribute was indeed not a boast. In the past, before he had entered the Supreme Dao stage, he would more or less feel a sense of exhaustion after shooting out several arrows at the same time. At that time, he had the spiritual power pearl, but it was not enough to completely replenish it in a short time. Now, the spiritual power pearl, a tool beneath the Supreme Dao stage, was clearly not enough. However, the completion of this spiritual wood essence, and even the spiritual wood essence, allowed him to replace the role of the spiritual power pearl on the path of the Supreme Dao stage. The green wood long spring formula also had healing effects. In this case, Qin Wushuang could be said to have another trump card. After the first wave of attacks was repelled, the momentum of those foreign freelance martial artists was instantly dampened. This time, among the foreign freelance martial artists that came to the Endless Eastern Sea, there were 4 strongest ones. 2 were at the 7th calamity of the Transformation Supreme Dao stage, and 2 were at the 6th calamity. Now, these 4 people could not help but gather together. When the first wave of attacks was broken by the enemy that easily, it made them feel ashamed. When they looked at the expression of the 18 dragon clans around them, clearly they were mocking them more than encouraging them. If the second wave of attacks could not make it in, regardless of how thick their skin was, most likely they would be too embarrassed to stay here. You 3, now it's up to the 4 of us. That kid has the graceful spiritual bow and possesses endless power. When a Transformation Supreme Dao warrior at the 1st or 2nd calamity goes in, it's not enough to defeat the enemy. This time, the 4 of us will go together. If it works, it will work. If it still doesn't work, we can only give up on this battle. Yes, this is our last fight. Riches and honor come from danger. Let's fight. All right, let's work together and kill that kid. Then, we will consider other things. These 4 guys reached a final mutual understanding as they urged their aura at the same time. Golden Light, Shakyamuni, carried a smile on the corner of his mouth and nodded. It seems they are preparing for the last fight. Make a guess, will they succeed? 4 6th or 7th calamity Transformation Supreme Dao warriors, if they risk their lives, even elite warriors who just entered the genuine Supreme Dao stage would restrain their fear, right? That kid has just entered the Supreme Dao stage. Even if he has such trump cards, could he truly defy the natural order? This is hard to say. Ever since that son of the Qin clan stepped onto the path of martial arts, he still amazed the world with a single brilliant feat despite being looked down upon. Many of those who look down on him are already dead. Haha. Anyways, it's not the dragon clans of the Eastern Sea that died. Let's watch the show. Like a graceful swan, the 4 figures rushed into the sky like lightning. Like a gust of wind, for perfect arcs pierced through the void and shot toward the track. For altitudes, for directions, and they charged in an orderly manner. Qin Wushuang's eyes were deep as he laughed. Good. With a loud roar, the green light that wrapped around his body suddenly became active. It transformed into countless shapes and attached itself to Qin Wushuang's body. Qin Wushuang knocked the bow and shot an arrow. Above the graceful spiritual bow, there was a layer of dazzling green light and a layer of even more dazzling golden light. The 2 rays of light were like 2 divine dragons that were fighting for beauty, emitting a wild aura. Qin Wushuang's heart was duty-bound to turn back. With a stomp of his feet, his body instantly rushed forward rapidly. Like a gust of wind, his figure had already disappeared from his original place. The 4 Transformation Supreme Dao elite warriors had a tacit understanding. They urged the divine power in their entire body and each of them performed their best skills to blast out a boundless power. The 4 rays of power presented different colors and aura. With just one roll, it was like a giant sky curtain. With just one roll, it formed a colorful whirlpool which condensed into a circular whirlpool of air that rolled toward Qin Wushuang. This speed and this aura were like a hurricane that could destroy the heavens and the earth. It rolled continuously and swept across the land. Qin Wushuang's pupils suddenly dilated as he stared at the core of the whirlpool. The shooting sun arrow was like a nimble leopard that rushed out of the graceful spiritual bowstring with a shocking speed. Buzz! With an earth-shaking vibration, the bowstring let out a perfect boom that shattered the void and made it tremble. One was a whirlpool of air. The other was a flowing light that pressed forward courageously. With a loud crash, the fatal collision caused the entire void to produce a loud noise that shook the heavens and the earth. The airflow shot out in all directions. When 2 rivals meet on a narrow path, the brave one wins. The shooting sun arrow was like an angry claw that tore the whirlpool into pieces. The green rays that condensed around the shooting sun arrow transformed into the shape of a ferocious monster. Carrying the core attack of the shooting sun arrow, it rushed forward. Not good. Retreat. At this time, the 4 Transformation Supreme Tao elite warriors finally knew how terrifying the enemy they had encountered was. This power, this aura, even if they had cultivated to the peak of the Transformation Supreme Tao stage, they would not be able to confront it head-on. Then, with the shooting sun arrow out, how could they return empty-handed? Even Golden Light Fuwang, who was watching the battle from afar, revealed a trace of emotion on his face. If you want to know what will happen next, please go to www.chidian.com to read more chapters. Support the author. Support the original reading. Chapter 782. The 2 Transformation Supreme Tao elite warriors were the first to bear the brunt. With a flash of golden light, instantly it expanded by more than 10 times and swallowed the 2 of them directly. Boom! As the golden light exploded, the 2 figures also exploded. Following the explosion of the golden light, they shot in all directions. The 2 Transformation Supreme Tao elite warriors at the back had nowhere to escape as they were chased by this golden light. When they moved to the side, a burst of white light shot out from the space crack. As if a giant whale had opened its white teeth, it swallowed the 2 of them. With just one sweep, they disappeared without a trace. As he looked at the battlefield filled with golden light, the shattered void was full of creases and cracks. It was a scene of devastation as far as the eye could see. Qin Wushuang also found it somewhat unexpected. This battle had truly surpassed his expectations. A Transformation Supreme Tao elite warrior was actually killed by him. As if he was dreaming, Qin Wushuang looked at the graceful spiritual bow in his hand that was still full of fighting spirit with astonishment. It seems that the infusion of the spiritual wood power has indeed allowed my power to rise to a monstrous level in a short period of time. I just don't know if I can kill a genuine Supreme Tao warrior if I activate it to the extreme. The first person that Qin Wushuang thought of was Heavenly Emperor Xian Tianwen. Unfortunately, Xian Tianwen was not here. Clearly, his super performance was a privilege granted by the spiritual tree clan. If he left this hibiscus forest with his current peak state, certainly he could deal with those 6th and 7th Calamity Transformation Supreme Tao warriors one-on-one. If he were to fight 1 against 4, he would lose for sure. Besides running away, he had no other choice. Human, good performance. With this development, we have a 30% chance of defending this place. That ancient voice of the spiritual tree clan gave a rare compliment. Qin Wushuang said with a bitter smile, "If Golden Ray Dragon King is at the peak of the genuine Supreme Tao stage, I am afraid we would not even have a 10% chance of winning." Humph! Then let's see if you dare to fight with all your power. If you dare to activate your Supreme Tao power to the extreme and are not afraid of getting injured, the instant the Supreme Tao power of the spiritual tree clan condenses, Even if we cannot defeat Golden Ray Dragon King, at least we can make him restrain his fear. You must remember, Golden Ray Dragon King will never exert all his power and will not risk getting injured. What he is afraid of is not you, but the Golden Crow. The Dragon Clan's army was actually here to investigate the Golden Crow. The Golden Crow was the greatest calamity of the endless Eastern Sea. On the periphery, the foreign rogue cultivators' faces were ashen. Although they still had a lot of people left, the 4 strongest experts were defeated by their opponents in a single exchange. They were either dead or missing. This was completely beyond their imagination. Previously, they knew that Qin Wushuang was powerful and was a proud son of heaven. With a graceful spiritual bow, he was like a tiger that had grown wings. But in their impression, Qin Wushuang was only that powerful because he relied on the graceful spiritual bow. Encountering a true transformation supreme Tao powerhouse, he could only flee without a trace. However, the reality before their eyes completely robbed them of their willpower. 4 transformation supreme Tao stage experts, 2 in the 6th tribulation and 2 in the 7th tribulation, had all perished in a single exchange. Even for the experts who had just entered the genuine supreme Tao stage, how many of them dared to guarantee that they could kill 4 transformation supreme Tao experts in one move? Astonishment, inexplicable astonishment, gradually turned into fear. Finally, they realized that it was a mistake to come to this endless Eastern Sea from beginning to end. Golden Ray Dragon King's sharp gaze fell on the face of these foreign martial artists. He asked with an indifferent tone, "Do you still want to try?" These 4 martial artists looked at each other in dismay, and the intention to retreat emerged from their faces. Regardless of how good the graceful spiritual bow was, and how enticing the immemorial formation inheritance was, it was not something they could covet. With the facts before them, they did not have the strength nor the qualifications to compete for it. If you give up, leave the endless Eastern Sea immediately. If you linger, the 18 dragon clans of the endless Eastern Sea will hunt you down without mercy. The expression of Golden Ray Dragon King changed abruptly. The endless greed of those foreign martial artists had already turned into endless fear. They left in a flurry and could not even speak ruthless words. "Your Majesty, indeed that son of the Qin clan is monstrous." In a flash, the 4 transformation supreme Tao elite warriors all lost their lives. For such divine skills, besides the few elite warriors of the Totem clan, even those at the genuine supreme Tao stage could not do it, right? The Forefather Dragon clan had 6 or 7 genuine supreme Tao warriors. However, there would not be more than 4 that could instantly kill 4 transformation supreme Tao elite warriors. At least, one would need to be at the 4th calamity of the genuine supreme Tao stage to be able to kill them instantly in one move. After all, when one trained to the 6th or 7th calamity of the transformation supreme Tao stage, their strength was not to be underestimated. This son of the Qin clan seems to be less than 30 years old, right? One of the Totem elite warriors also sighed endlessly. It's simply unheard of. For tens and thousands of years, our forefather dragon disciples have never had such a monstrous existence. This son of the Qin clan, could it be? Golden Ray Dragon King revealed a light smile. Although the strength of this son of the Qin clan is exceptional, you only know one aspect and not the other. With his talent and strength, it's still unknown whether he could defeat a 6 calamity transformation supreme Tao warrior in a one-on-one head-on confrontation. This, Your Majesty, everyone saw that attack a moment ago. The other elite warriors were somewhat doubtful. That's right, indeed, everyone saw it. However, clearly that is not the true strength of this son of the Qin clan. If his true strength had reached this stage, he would not have needed to escape to the endless Eastern Sea. When the Heavenly Emperor Gate besieged the aspiring Throne Mountain Qin clan, they would have lost without a doubt. Your Majesty, what do you mean? It's simple. That attack from that son of the Qin clan did not come from his own power, but from the grafted divine skill of the spiritual tree clan. He transferred the divine power of the spiritual tree clan to Qin Wushuang instantly and allowed his power to increase a few times. If it wasn't the case, those 6th and 7th Calamity Transformation Supreme Tao warriors would not have grown up to be vegetarians. How is it possible for them to be killed instantly by a young man who just entered the Supreme Tao stage? Grafted divine skill, those totem elite warriors were somewhat surprised. Yes, it's rumored that the Hibiscus Spiritual Tree Clan has a technique called the Green Wood Long Spring Formula. After training it, you can perform the grafted divine skill. Now, I'm curious about how many Supreme Tao attributes that Qin Wushuang possesses. Previously, didn't you say he absorbed the fire soul of the scarlet fire? Now, he also absorbed the essence of the spiritual wood. At least, this Qin Wushuang already possesses 2 supreme Tao attributes, fire and wood. 2 great divine Tao attributes. That's not too rare, is it? If it's only 2 supreme Tao attributes, it's not rare indeed. But don't forget the recent rumor about the immemorial formation. I have reason to suspect that the immemorial formation may have really been inherited by this son of the Qin clan. Otherwise, it's hard for me to believe that a young man who grew up in the human countries could achieve such a monstrous result before the age of 30. Yes, even if the grafted divine skill is powerful, if there is no physical foundation to bear it, there will be a risk of the body exploding due to excessive divine power. This at least proves that the son of the Qin clan has a very good foundation. Yes, it's rumored that the immemorial formation can go against the heavens and change one's fate. The person who inherited the immemorial formation possesses all 5 supreme Tao attributes. Possesses all 5 supreme Tao attributes. So abnormal? Your Majesty, is this true? If so, then this kid's future is completely limitless, isn't it? Possessing all 5 supreme Tao attributes. Even if he breaks through the peak of the genuine Supreme Tao stage and soars into the galaxy, it's not a myth, right? Yes, Your Majesty. Is this rumor credible? Whether it's credible or not, I don't know. But the people who know this inside story won't be more than 10 people. Possessing all 5 Supreme Tao attributes, what does it mean? All of you should know. The Ancestor Dragon Tribe were all genuine Supreme Tao stage experts. Naturally, they would not know what it meant. All of them nodded with a solemn expression. To a martial artist, mastering each attribute was actually an additional opportunity to communicate with the nature of heaven and earth. Most of the martial artists could only master 1 attribute in their entire life. This was a talent, something that was innate. Basically, it couldn't be changed after birth, unless one encountered a great fortune. Mastering 1 type of attribute and mastering 5 types of natural attributes were 2 completely different concepts. The most basic of the nature of heaven and earth were the basic attributes of the 5 Supreme Tao stage. It could be said that the attributes of the 5 Supreme Tao stage were the foundation of the construction of this world. It was the original power of the world. Communicating with 1 attribute was equivalent to forming a natural communication with one of the attributes. And having all 5 attributes was equivalent to having the most comprehensive and 3-dimensional communication. To make a rough analogy, the attributes of the 5 Supreme Tao stage were like 5 doors. Naturally, the view from opening 1 door and the view from opening 5 doors were completely different. Possessing the talent of all 5 attributes, the degree of communication with heaven and earth would be 5 times greater than other martial artists. Perhaps, in the early stages of training, those with more attributes would have a slower training speed. However, in the later stages, such advantage would become more apparent. If one were to compare soaring to the Galaxia as a process of peaking at the Great Tao, then in this process, possessing 1 more attribute talent would mean that this path would be wider. Unfortunately, in the Tianxian land, it was difficult to find 1 martial artist with the 5 Supreme Tao stage. Even if they could not enter the Supreme Tao stage, it would be useless. One could say that those who possessed the talent of all 5 attributes and did not lose to other martial artists in terms of training speed were monstrous. For such martial artists, their potential was the most terrifying. For the time being, those elite warriors of the ancestor dragon tribe all had complicated emotions. Mixed with envy, unwillingness, and even jealousy, they looked at the hibiscus forest with complicated gazes. If talent could be plundered, they would even do everything to take Qin Wushuang's talent. Your Majesty, then what should we do next? Should we charge and break through the enemy lines, or should we let the 18 dragon clans take the vanguard? Golden Ray Dragon King revealed a profound gaze that revealed a burst of sharp lights. He fixed his gaze at the direction of the hibiscus forest, and after a while, he said, I will go in myself. Although the 18 dragon clans are powerful, under such circumstances, it would only be throwing away their lives if we let them go. It doesn't matter how many of those foreign martial artists die. The dragon clans of the endless Eastern Sea don't need to throw away their lives for no reason. After he finished speaking, Golden Ray Dragon King's body transformed into an illusion. Immediately, tens and thousands of golden lights transformed from the entire sky. The canopy of the sky was filled with dazzling golden lights that filled the entire firmament. To be continued. If you want to know about the future, please log on to www.chidian.com. More chapters, support the author, support the original reading. Chapter 783. Your Majesty is mighty. When the 18 dragon clans saw the Golden Ray Dragon King transforming his body, each of them prostrated themselves in worship. They cheered endlessly as they looked at the 5-clawed golden dragon in the sky. Even for the strongest leaders of the 18 dragon clans, the Golden Ray Dragon King's body was rarely seen. Past my 9 dragon order, 18 dragon clans, hold back your troops and are not allowed to attack without permission. I will personally meet this exceptional young elite warrior of a Xian Yuan Mound. The roar from the Golden Ray Dragon King sounded like a warning to the 18 dragon clans. In fact, it was a form of suggestion. It was a strategy to subdue the enemy without fighting. Of course, he knew that since this son of the Qin clan was someone valued by a controller like Li Bai, even if he was not afraid of Li Bai, he must never kill Qin Wushuang. Or else, in the future, the endless Eastern Sea would suffer endless suppression from the top circle of the Tianxian land. Perhaps that Li Bai would not come to the endless Eastern Sea to kill him. However, being the controller of the god discarding door, as long as he gave some pressure to the endless Eastern Sea before opening the door, the other 4 forbidden spiritual zones would certainly unite with a tacit understanding to push out the endless Eastern Sea. After all, the meaning of sharing a portion of pastries between 5 people and 4 people was completely different. Those forbidden spiritual zones would definitely be happy to kick the endless Eastern Sea out. Therefore, the roar from the Golden Ray Dragon King was in fact a reminder to Qin Wushuang to not overestimate his own strength and fight recklessly. The Golden Ray Dragon King was going to make a move himself. Inside the hibiscus forest, the voice of the spiritual tree clan sounded a bit anxious. Indeed, this Golden Ray Dragon King is powerful. He is not careless at all and is going into the battle himself. He did not even send the 18 dragon clans to take the lead. He did not even give you a chance to warm up. Human, are you ready? Qin Wushuang also smiled bitterly. This was simply forcing a duck onto a perch. He had only broken into the Supreme Tao stage for less than half a year, and he had to face such a peerless elite warrior like the Golden Ray Dragon King directly. Human, what are you hesitating for? Qin Wushuang gave a long sigh. I'm not hesitating. I am thinking that regardless of the spiritual tree clan or myself, we cannot afford to lose this battle. However, we do not see much of a chance of winning. Isn't this what it means to fight to survive after putting yourself in a desperate situation? Don't hesitate, get ready. This time, the intensity of the divine power pouring into your body will be several times stronger than before. Your physical body will suffer great torment, even more painful than purgatory. However, this is also our only chance of winning. Do you understand? Qin Wushuang smiled and pretended to be relaxed as he teased. Come, whether you are a dragon or a fish, This battle will decide everything. Golden Ray Dragon King. Qin Wushuang pushed his dantian to the limit. Streams of divine power surged into his body through the vines like raging waves. That feeling was like a broken dam in a river. Wave after wave crashed against his body, his aperture acupoints, tendons, meridians, and his entire dantian. The powerful impact almost tore Qin Wushuang's corporeal body into pieces. Qin Wushuang's corporeal body was also undergoing rapid changes. It was natural for Qin Wushuang to find it extremely strenuous to bear the infusion of divine power all at once. However, he did not have any way to retreat. Get ready. Guide these powers and condense them into one. Nurture them in your graceful spiritual bow and give the Golden Ray Dragon King a fatal blow. Just as the voice resounded, the Golden Ray Dragon King rushed forward. That golden light was like a cloud that could transform into any shape at will. It turned into a long stream of light and swept in. This momentum was like a thunderbolt from the clear sky. It was boundless and could not be compared to those Transformation Supreme Tao Realm warriors. With just a dash, it approached the track. Qin Wushuang shouted, "Your Majesty, please stop." The graceful spiritual bow was lifted up and 9 shooting sun arrows were placed on the bowstring. All of his trump cards were taken out without any concealment. Even so, Qin Wushuang did not have any chance of winning. Golden light flashed, and the majestic voice of the Golden Ray Dragon King sounded like thunder and wind. "Son of the Qin family, I love talents and cannot bear to kill you. If you keep ruining this prince's plans, then this prince will have to make you suffer." After he finished speaking, that golden light rushed forward. A stream of light turned into a rainbow and shot over directly. With a shake in the air, it instantly transformed into tens of thousands of golden lights and condensed into hundreds of thousands of virtual forms. There were monsters, sharp weapons, and strange shapes of ghosts. All kinds of strange things pounced over. This is the Golden Ray Spirit Pounce. Its attack power is tyrannical. Qin Wushuang roared, just as the graceful spiritual bow was about to be activated to its limit at this moment. In everyone's ears, an earth-shattering sound resounded. Then, the entire island where the hibiscus forest was located began to tremble rapidly. It was as if a great change had occurred between heaven and earth. The entire void began to sway. The surrounding sea area began to howl. The momentum of countless rising waves turned into a huge roar that resounded through the sky. This situation was as if the end of the world had arrived. "What's going on?" Qin Wushuang's heart stirred. Golden Ray Dragon King also felt apprehensive inwardly. That ray of golden light did not advance, but retreated instead. Golden Ray Dragon King, who initially occupied the advantageous terrain, was sent flying. Just as Qin Wushuang was stunned for a moment, the ancient voice of the Hibiscus Spiritual Tree Clan sounded suddenly. With an extremely complicated tone, he said, "It's him! It's him!" "Who?" "The Golden Crow. Indeed, the Golden Crow has revived." It was unknown whether the Hibiscus Spiritual Tree Clan was happy, regretful, or sad. To the Hibiscus Spiritual Tree Clan, the revival of the Golden Crow was definitely not a good thing. It meant the calamity of the Hibiscus Spiritual Tree Clan had begun again. However, if the Golden Crow did not revive, perhaps they would not be able to pass today's calamity. The Golden Crow has revived? Qin Wushuang only felt a burst of dryness in his throat. For a moment, he was speechless. An indescribable, complicated feeling emerged from his heart. To his current situation, the revival of the Golden Crow might not be a bad thing. However, to the entire Tianxian land, the revival of the Golden Crow was definitely a calamity. During the immemorial period, the Golden Crow wreaked havoc on the Tianxian land and caused the fall of countless supreme Tao warriors. This was a memory that could not be erased for tens and thousands of years. Currently, this Golden Crow had revived again. Did it mean that a new calamity had begun for the Tianxian land? On the outside, waves that soared to the sky were at least a few hundred meters high. They kept rising. Above this wave, There was a ball of red clouds and mist that appeared incomparably enchanting. Above this cloud and mist, there was a screen of light. Inside the screen of light, a gigantic feathered beast that could blot out the sky was slowly spreading its wings as if it had just woken up from a dream. As those wings kept spreading, its temperament also became more majestic. Achoo! When that feathered beast sneezed, instantly, countless bursts of fire shot out. It sprayed down directly at the group of the 18 dragon clans. For a time, it seemed as if a large brazier in the sky had been kicked over. Countless bursts of fire poured down like hailstones. From a few hundred meters high in the sky, the intensity of the bursts of fire seemed as if a three-dimensional fiery waterfall was pouring down with majestic temperament. Golden Ray Dragon King just happened to dash out. Without thinking, he spat out a burst of powerful dragon breath. Like a gigantic light board, a burst of ordinary golden light pierced over diagonally. It blocked above the heads of the 18 dragon clans and caught that torrential fire. At the same time, the Golden Ray Dragon King roared like a tiger. Everyone retreat. Retreat 3,000 miles. Ga. The mournful howl seemed to have changed the color of the heavens and earth. It possessed a form of soul-stirring momentum. In between the howl of this golden crow, everyone felt as if their hearts were grabbed by it. They felt abnormally uncomfortable, as if their internal organs were about to be displaced. The Golden Ray Dragon King opened his mouth and also let out a continuous dragon roar. When this dragon roar dashed out, it immediately restrained that sharp howl. Like two monsters that met on a narrow path, they engaged in a fight, and neither side was willing to submit to the other. Upon seeing this situation, those people of the 18 dragon clans did not hesitate as they all retreated to the outside. Shang Yi revealed an anxious look as he took a few steps forward. Instead, he wanted to dash towards the direction of the hibiscus forest, but he was pulled back by Isumi, brother Shang Yi. Don't go. Shang Yi's face was filled with pain. Brother Wu Shuang, Long DeBao roared directly. Go quickly. Even if you go in now, you will not be able to help him. Besides being a burden, you will be useless. When Shang Yi was roared at by Long DeBao and pushed by the dragon breath, he could not help but retreat with the large group. On the side of the Horned Dragon clan, clearly Mi Luo was already on guard against Mi Jia. When he saw Mi Jia's somewhat strange expression, he dragged her and roared, Girl, the revival of the Golden Crow is not a joke. You must not be willful. Let's go. Although Mi Jia was powerful before her father, she did not have the power to resist. She was dragged away by force. Inwardly, she kept whispering, Young Qin, you must take care. When the Golden Crow saw the Golden Ray Dragon King was so exceptional, his temper flared up. He wanted to charge and kill the 18 dragon clans a few times, yet he was held back by the Golden Ray Dragon King. The other two totem elite warriors of the Totem clan did not retreat. Instead, they guarded on the side carefully and were ready to help the Golden Ray Dragon King at any time. The Golden Ray Dragon King roared angrily, You two, leave too. The Golden Ray Dragon King was extremely clear that even though this Golden Crow had just been revived, if they were to fight head-on, perhaps he was still slightly weaker than the Golden Ray Dragon King. However, this Golden Crow had a pair of huge wings. If he were to wait for it to regain its consciousness, once it launched guerrilla warfare, the Dragon Clan would suffer an extremely terrifying loss. Therefore, before this Golden Crow completely regained its consciousness, he would hold it back for a moment. Apparently, the Golden Crow understood the intention of the Golden Ray Dragon King. Yet, it gave a wild roar and did not fight head-on with the Golden Ray Dragon King. Instead, it charged towards the direction of the hibiscus forest. When Qin Wushuang saw this situation, he was also greatly astonished. At this moment, when the divine power poured into his body, he had just reached his limit. Without even thinking, Qin Wushuang pulled the graceful spiritual bow to its limit. 9 shooting sun arrows lined up side by side. The green light brought along the golden light. An unprecedentedly powerful aura was emitted from the bowstring. It was as if this was a fated encounter, and this golden crow had coincidentally crashed into it. The graceful spiritual bow versus the golden crow. Faintly, this seemed to have happened in the immemorial era. To be continued. If you want to know what happened later, please go to www.chijian.com. There are more chapters. Support the author. Support the original reading. Chapter 784. Golden Ray Dragon King followed closely behind. Seeing this situation, his mind was moved, and he roared, "Son of the Qin family, quickly retreat." The 9 shooting sun arrows turned into 9 rays of golden light and spread out in the air, forming a 9-star alignment. The head and tail of the arrows were connected and directly connected into a ball. It was like a vast starry sky and a huge black hole that swallowed the golden crow. Although the golden crow had just been revived, when it suddenly saw the shooting sun arrows shooting over, it was as if the floodgates of its memories were opened. All the feathers on its body stood up. Its pair of ferocious eyes also instantly became red, as if a red pill was smeared on it. With a low roar, the fury of the golden crow had obviously reached its peak. As if it had seen its old enemy in its previous life, its eyes became red and its feathers stood up. The powerful power of the shooting sun arrows rushed over. The wings of the golden crow stretched out incomparably and flapped 9 times in a row. 9 rays of fiery red astral wind, one after another, rapidly spread out like huge ripples. They continuously condensed and formed a chain-like defense around its body. Boom! The fateful collision shook the entire track into ruins. Outside the hibiscus forest, the fragments of the void were also flying wildly. The airflow surged up and soared into the sky. The shooting sun arrows, the strongest attack of the 9-star alignment, had no effect in front of the golden crow's powerful defense. It flew back in despair. The golden crow laughed nastily and let out a strange cry. Obviously, the graceful spiritual bow had evoked countless painful memories and also evoked its monstrous hatred. Seeing that the owner of the graceful spiritual bow was obviously far inferior to the E of the immemorial era, the golden crow immediately became complacent. With a dive, it pounced towards Qin Wushuang. When it was still a few hundred feet away from Qin Wushuang already felt a powerful aura of death, covering the sky and covering the earth. For a moment, it was as if the sky had suddenly collapsed. At this moment, the Golden Ray Dragon King had already arrived. His 5 golden claws directly grabbed in the direction of the golden crow's descent. The void immediately caved in. 5 rays of claw aura, like lightning, shot out violently. At the same time, Golden Ray Dragon King roared, "Kid, if you don't want to die, leave now." Inwardly, Qin Wushuang felt apprehensive. Without the slightest hesitation, he transformed into a wave of purple light and dashed to the outside. The original intention of the Golden Crow was only to kill the owner of the graceful spiritual bow. However, the Golden Ray Dragon King had appeared out of nowhere. Naturally, it was furious. It lifted its body, flapped its wings, and glared at the Golden Ray Dragon King. "Stinky Loach, do you really want to go against your Golden Crow?" The Golden Ray Dragon King snorted coldly. The ancient evildoers did not die out even after death. "Today, if I let you go, the endless eastern sea will never have a peaceful day." The Golden Crow sneered and stared at the Golden Crow Dragon King. "Little Loach, even the primordial ancestor dragon wouldn't dare to talk to me like that. Who do you think you are?" Golden Ray Dragon King knew that even the ancestral dragon tribe was helpless against the Golden Crow in the primordial age. But that was in the primordial age when the Golden Crow was at its peak. Now, this Golden Crow had just revived, and its power was not even half of its peak. The Golden Ray Dragon King was confident that he could suppress it. However, if he were to allow this vile creature to keep evolving, the power of this Golden Crow would keep awakening and recovering. If it were to return to its peak in the primordial age, no one in the entire Tianxian land would be able to defeat it, While the golden crow answered the golden ray dragon king, it shot a glance at the outside with flickering eyes. All of a sudden, a layer of shadow transformed from the surface of the golden crow's body. Next, this shadow swept across and transformed into countless afterimages that filled the sky. It was the figure of the golden crow that dashed to the outside. When the golden ray dragon king saw the golden crow acting this way, instantly he knew its motive. With an angry roar, he put his claws together and kept clawing over. For the power of the dragon-shaped divine claws, even the tyrannical body of the golden crow would not dare to resist it head-on. Only this golden crow had transformed into tens of thousands of clones. Although the golden ray dragon king's claw was powerful, he could not tell which one was real and which one was fake. For the time being, the Dharma eyes could not distinguish them. Just as Qin Wushuang was about to flee to the outside, suddenly, a strong suction force from his back dragged him back forcefully, as if it had dragged him back. Without thinking, Qin Wushuang pulled the bow and shot back. With a turn of his head to look at the moon, 3 arrows were shot back simultaneously. Under the suction force, the golden crow forgot to defend against the graceful spiritual bow and was almost hit by these 3 arrows. Under its fury, it swept its wings, and a burst of monstrous power rolled towards Qin Wushuang's figure like a hurricane. Initially, Qin Wushuang was trapped by that suction force and was already struggling. Suddenly, when he was rolled by this hurricane, his body was like a small boat that was knocked down by the giant wave. He completely lost his direction and swayed as he fell towards the left side of the track. The Golden Ray Dragon King wanted to lend a hand, yet it was already too late. Suddenly, the wild space crack opened. Between the spurting of white light, it had already swallowed Qin Wushuang's swaying figure. The giant whirlpool rolled, and Qin Wushuang's figure had already disappeared without a trace. The Golden Ray Dragon King's heart immediately tightened, and a sense of disappointment and frustration floated up spontaneously. How could he not know the reason why this golden crow wanted to deal with Qin Wushuang so crazily? Without a doubt, it was impossible for the golden crow to have any enmity with Qin Wushuang. The enmity was with the graceful spiritual bow. If the golden crow was resurrected again, it would be the bow and arrow that killed it in the primordial age. As for that bow, looking at the situation, it was indeed the graceful spiritual bow. With the golden crow's action, it was obvious that it wanted to destroy the graceful spiritual bow to prevent any future troubles. In a trance, the Golden Ray Dragon King realized that Qin Wushuang could possibly be the person chosen by the heavens, and that graceful spiritual bow should have been born out of necessity and reappeared for this golden crow. Unfortunately, before this graceful spiritual bow had the chance to show its power, it was swept into the crack in space by the golden crow. This space crack was mysterious and strange. Even if a genuine supreme Tao expert was swept in, the probability of survival was extremely low. That Qin Wushuang had just entered the supreme Tao stage not long ago. Once he was swept in, he would not be able to struggle out in the beginning and would only sink deeper and deeper. Therefore, the Golden Ray Dragon King's gaze was fixed on the space crack. He hoped that Qin Wushuang would be able to struggle out. The golden crow was obviously not unfamiliar with this space crack. Endless ominous glints flickered in its eyes as it stared at the space crack. As long as the owner of the graceful spiritual bow showed the slightest sign of rushing out, it would definitely suppress it ruthlessly regardless of the cost. It would definitely not let the graceful spiritual bow become the pain in its heart again. A few breaths of time felt like a few years, a few decades, or a few centuries. The Golden Ray Dragon King sighed softly. The devouring whirlpool of this space crack was extremely powerful. Once one was swept in, even a genuine supreme Tao expert would find it hard to struggle out. To struggle out, one would only have a chance when the whirlpool was not fully formed. Once one was swept in, there would not be any chance to speak of. Time was like a drop of water dripping by. The smile of the golden crow also became more proud. Little Loach, no need to wait. If that kid can come out alive, he's powerful. The Golden Ray Dragon King said angrily, "Bastard, just you wait. Someone will come to settle accounts with you." The Golden Crow roared with laughter. In the Tianxian land, there will be no more graceful spiritual bow, no more great godhood. Whoever comes to settle accounts with me will be digging their own grave. The Golden Ray Dragon King also lacked confidence. He also did not know how much Li Bai cared about this Qin Wushuang. Being the controller of the god discarding door, it was also unknown how powerful Li Bai's true strength was. In the future, it would also be a mystery whether he could suppress this golden crow or not. Surrounding the space crack, bursts of cold lights scuttled like fire seedlings. It would make one feel intimidated just by looking at it. The Golden Ray Dragon King knew that if he did not come up after such a long time, most likely that Qin Wushuang would not come up. Giving a long sigh inwardly, he roared, "Bastard, even without the graceful spiritual bow, today I will not let you escape justice." In the end, resurrection is only a beautiful dream for dried bones. The Golden Crow roared with laughter. "Little Loach, your Golden Crow has not recovered 30% of my power. I will not play with you now. In 3 or 5 years, I will settle accounts with you." After he finished speaking, he flapped his wings and instantly broke through the clouds to shoot to the blue dome of heaven. When the Golden Ray Dragon King saw this Golden Crow come and go like the wind, like the movement of the stars, he was as fast as a ghost. Even he, the Golden Ray Dragon King, was left in the dust. With a long sigh, the Golden Ray Dragon King felt a burst of gloomy desolation inwardly. This Golden Crow had just been resurrected, and he already possessed such tyrannical strength. If he was allowed to recover for 3 or 5 years and his power was restored to his peak state, most likely the entire Tianxian land would become a slaughterhouse. No, I must inform the other totem powerhouses. Now, it is no longer the responsibility of the endless Eastern Sea to maintain the fate of the entire Tianxian land. When the Golden Ray Dragon King thought here, he turned around to look at this hibiscus forest and mumbled to himself, "The immemorial spiritual tree clan received the fortune of heaven and earth. If I were to destroy it forcefully, I am afraid I will have to pay a price today. In case this spiritual tree clan fights to the death and injures me, I must guard against that Golden Crow taking advantage of my perilous state. Today's matter will end here. There must not be any more incidents." When he thought here, the Golden Ray Dragon King transformed into a burst of golden light and disappeared into the boundless sea. Hidden among the clouds, the Golden Crow was endlessly resentful. Indeed, this little Loach is cunning. If he makes a move to deal with the spiritual tree clan, it's just right. When both sides suffer, I can swallow his dragon pellet, and it will be enough to restore 60 to 70% of my power. By that time, wouldn't the endless Eastern Sea be mine to take as I wish? Too bad. The Golden Ray Dragon King caught up to the main troop of the Dragon Clan. When everyone saw the grave expression of the Golden Ray Dragon King, they all felt heavy and did not dare to ask. The Golden Ray Dragon King said, "Everyone, with the resurrection of the Golden Crow, a calamity is unavoidable for the Tianxian land. Our endless Eastern Sea is adjacent to the rushing current valley. We will bear the brunt. In order to preserve the bloodline of the Dragon Clan, the 18 Dragon Clans will give up their cave dwellings and move into the first-rate Dragon Palace. Inside the endless Eastern Sea, only the first-rate Dragon King could resist the frantic attack of the Golden Crow. Now, the only plan was to preserve the 18 Dragon Clans. For the other small powerhouses, they must make sacrifices when necessary. Naturally, they cannot do everything well. To be continued. If you want to know the future, please log on to www.chidian.com. There are more chapters. Support the author. Support the original reading. Chapter 785. From the mouth of the Golden Ray Dragon King. Naturally, the news of Qin Wushuang being swallowed by the space crack was exceptionally credible. When Shang Yi and Su Mi of the Coiled Dragon Clan And Mi Jia, the Horn Dragon clan, heard this news. They all felt as if the sky and earth were spinning. Mi Jia did not believe it all, as she could not help but mumble inwardly. How is it possible? That arrogant guy, that lucky guy, died just like that. I don't believe it. I definitely don't believe it. Shang Yi felt as if his heart was being cut by a knife. Both of his hands trembled slightly as he looked up at the endless starry sky. He gritted his teeth. Brother Wu Shuang, you are a person with great fortune. I don't believe that feathered animal could have taken your life. So what if it's a space crack? I believe that nothing will happen to you. Sumi grabbed Shang Ye's arm tightly. Brother Shang Yi, don't be too sad. Shang Ye's eyes were red as he laughed somewhat crazily. Su-er, how can I not be sad? How can I? In my entire life, besides my teacher, I only have two loved ones. One is you, Su-er, and the other is Brother Wu Shuang. I, Shang Yi, swear that if anything happens to Brother Wu Shuang, no matter how strong the Golden Crow is, I will use my life to kill the Golden Crow as my goal. I will not change my mind until my death. Brother Shang Yi, I will definitely be with you. Shang Yi kept crying. I really don't know how to explain it to Miss Murong, or to Uncle Qin and the others. Sumi gave a slight sigh. We can only be vague and comfort them. Let's talk about it after we stabilize their emotions. How exceptional was the intelligence network of the 18 dragon clans? When the information was spread out from the 18 dragon clans, almost in a day, the entire endless Eastern Sea received the news of the resurrection of the Golden Crow. While discussing the Golden Crow, of course they could not help but bring Qin Wushuang into the conversation. Fortunately, the Golden Ray Dragon King left some reputation for Qin Wushuang. He announced to the outside world that Qin Wushuang was accidentally swallowed by the space crack when dealing with the Golden Crow. Of course, this was also the truth. However, it allowed the people of the endless Eastern Sea to have some extra respect when they discussed Qin Wushuang. After all, not everyone had the courage to fight against the Golden Crow head-on. Just this sense of righteousness alone was enough to make people feel deep respect for him. Soon, the news spread out of the endless Eastern Sea. In less than 3 days, all of the other Forbidden God Zones had learned about everything. Before the Xian Yuan Mound, aspiring throne mountain, Heavenly Emperor Exantianwen was in solitary training. He was tempering his spiritual perception and controlling the Nirvana Heavenly Plow to fight with Qin Xiaoyan's Divine Soul Seal. Almost a year had passed, and the aspiring Throne Mountain battle was still in a stalemate. But the initiative was already gradually grasped by the Heavenly Emperor camp. Although it would still be difficult to break the Divine Soul Seal, with this Nirvana Heavenly Plow at hand, Xian Tianwen was incredibly confident that sooner or later he would break the mountain-protecting formation of the aspiring Throne Mountain and cut off all the ley lines completely. Once the spirit vein was broken, the formation lost the support of the spirit energy and naturally collapsed. Once this scene appeared, the great army of the Heavenly Emperor Party would invade the aspiring Throne Mountain like the tide and attack the old nest of the Qin clan. At that time, it would be a bloody massacre. For thousands of years of resentment and a series of grudges, it would be time to settle everything. Currently, those three neutral sects were not in a bad mood with Xian Tianwen. They also saw that indeed, the initiative was grasped by the Heavenly Emperor. In the current situation, the Heavenly Emperor Party appeared to be in harmony and the atmosphere was extremely good. They appear to be a large family, united as one. On this day, a group of supreme Dao elite warriors gathered together as usual to discuss the recent battle situation. However, they saw Xian Tianshan walk into the tent with a face full of joy. Everyone, good news, definitely good news. Xian Tianshan shook his fist and beamed with joy. He swept across everyone with his gaze. In the end, he stopped at Lei Yu and said with a smile, Daoist Lei Yu, let me ask you, who is the person you hate the most? Of course it's Qin Wushuang, that bastard kid. When Lei Yu thought of Qin Wushuang, he could not help but feel angry. Killing Lei Ming had caused the Sound of Thunder sect to lose a supreme Dao warrior. Certainly, their status would drop greatly. This was the pain in Lei Yu's heart. Yes, Xin Tianchen laughed and stopped to look at the leaders of the three neutral sections. He laughed leisurely. Thousand Feather Sect, Mysterious Reform Gate, and 100 Lane Clan, although you three have attached yourselves to the Heavenly Emperor to deal with the Qin clan together, there were a few times when you were in a bad mood and wanted to withdraw. I guess that inwardly, you were worried that a monstrous person like Qin Wushuang would launch a sneak attack on your sect, right? Hearing his question, the leaders of the three sects felt somewhat embarrassed. Of course, it would not be good to admit it. If they did not, it would seem somewhat hypocritical. Xin Tianchen laughed. Today, let's be frank and honest and speak freely. Even if you have such intentions, you don't need to worry in the future. Everyone was moved inwardly. Xin Tianchen did not keep them in suspense as he laughed leisurely. The latest authoritative news is extremely reliable. That Qin Wushuang kid already lost his life at the endless Eastern Sea. What, dead? Lei Yu stood up all of a sudden and clenched his fists tightly. He revealed an incomparably excited expression as he fixed his gaze on Xin Tianchen. Taoist Tianchen, is this true? It's true. The news came from His Majesty, Golden Ray Dragon King. The situation at that time was like this. Xin Tianchen revealed the information in full detail. After everyone finished listening, they kept exclaiming in admiration. Lei Yu gritted his teeth and let out a long breath. He cried out, "It's great that he's dead. It's great that he's dead." Unfortunately, it's too easy for him to die like this. He would have suffered a lot less. Xin Tianwu also shared the same feeling. Isn't that right? For this kid, if we can catch him, we must cut him into pieces. Or else, how can we get rid of the hatred in our hearts? Although the leaders of the other three neutral sects did not hold any grudges with Qin Wushuang, their common sense of seeking benefits and avoiding harm made them feel that the death of Qin Wushuang was indeed beneficial to them. All of them also cried out in praise. Inwardly, although they felt that Qin Wushuang was extremely righteous when he fought against the Golden Crow, it was just a thought. After weighing the pros and cons, naturally they felt relieved from the death of Qin Wushuang. What did the death of Qin Wushuang mean? It meant that the end of the Qin clan was near. It meant that they no longer had any worries in the rear. Qin Shaotian had sealed the aspiring throne mountain with his divine soul. Once the aspiring throne mountain was breached, the first person the Heavenly Emperor would kill would certainly be Qin Shaotian. As for the other Supreme Tao warriors, such as Qin Yunran and Qin Chongyang, although they were also powerful, they could not withstand the swarm of so many Supreme Tao elite warriors. One punch from each person was enough to smash them into meat paste. Therefore, without the variable Qin Wushuang, it could be said that all worries in the rear were swept away. They felt fortunate that they had stood on the right side. If they had resisted stubbornly and not joined the Heavenly Emperor's side, after the Heavenly Emperor Gate had taken down the Qin clan, it would be another story as to how they would treat the three houses. Suddenly, Xin Tianchen asked, "Tianchen, for this good news, did you tell the Heavenly Emperor?" "Ha ha, His Majesty is in solitary training, but I already sent my spiritual perception to him. As soon as he opens his consciousness, he will receive my communication talisman. This good news is definitely worth celebrating. Haha, I truly want to see what kind of face the entire Qin clan will have when they hear this news." Yin Beifei of the Heavenly Punishing Villa also held a deep grudge with the Qin clan as he spoke with a strange tone. Yin Guinan laughed. Perhaps the entire Qin clan is still looking forward to the return of Qin Wushuang and the arrival of a mysterious army to save the Qin clan from the fire and water. Haha, the Qin clan always wins. This time they have lost greatly. Xin Tianwu's gaze had become eerie as she exchanged a glance with Lei Yu. Taoist Lei Yu, since Qin Wushuang is already dead, it seems that it would not be useful to keep the two little mole crickets from the human countries we captured, right? Yes, those two little crickets are only at the Void Marshal stage. They are not worth mentioning. When His Majesty comes out of solitary training, we will ask for his permission to kill them. In the middle of their conversation, Suddenly Xian Tianchen revealed a joyful expression as he said leisurely, "Speaking of His Majesty, he seems to have come out of solitary training." Indeed, Xian Tianwen's joyful laughter came from outside the tent. A burst of powerful presence poured in and swept open the curtain. Xian Tianwen walked in large strides. "Everyone, from your jubilant appearance, it seems Tianchen has already shared the good news with you?" "Yes, Your Majesty, the heavens are helping us." Xian Tianwen revealed a proud smile. Thinking about that Qin clan, they always boasted shamelessly and claimed to carry out justice for the heavens. They used the name of the heavens to gain fame by deceiving the world. Unexpectedly, even the heavens have abandoned them. The defeat of the Qin clan will happen in these 3 or 5 years. Your Majesty, it's useless to keep those 2 little crickets from the human countries. How about? Xian Tianwu asked impatiently. Xian Tianwen nodded. In general, the powerhouses of the forbidden spiritual zones are not allowed to make a move against the sects of the human countries. However, since they left the human countries and went to the endless Eastern Sea, they are not within the territory of the human countries. Even if we destroyed their sect, we would have an excuse. Tianwu, I will leave those 2 to you. Also, go to the Eastern Sea again. If that Qin Wushuang's family and sect did not make it back to the human countries, you can rob and kill them. Instantly, this order satisfied Xian Tianwu's twisted mind. Beaming with joy, she said, "Yes, Your Majesty." She grabbed the sky and already grabbed Wei, Yi, and Zhao Muji. Before all the supreme Dao elite warriors, Wei, Yi, and Zhao Muji were shaken. However, they forced themselves to remain calm as they glared at this group of people. They held their heads high and did not lower their heads. "Humph humph, 2 little crickets and crickets, you are learning from others to be so stubborn," Zhao Muji said with a cold sneer. "Old demonic woman, just kill me if you want. Why would I be scared of you? The Heavenly Emperor Gate is despicable and shameless. In the end, you cannot escape the mouth of the people of the world. When my junior brother Wushuang returns from the Eastern Sea, it will be the end of the Heavenly Emperor Gate. Ha ha, junior brother Wushuang? In your dreams. Ha ha ha, this kid is still in his dreams. Kid, that Qin Wushuang was swallowed by the golden crow at the endless Eastern Sea. Not even his bones are left. If he is coming back, stop dreaming. Tianwu, what do you have to say to these crickets and crickets?" Xian Tianwen spoke with an indifferent tone. Xian Tianwen nodded and grabbed with her palm. Her supreme Dao power directly sucked these 2 before her. Just as she was about to exert her power, all of a sudden, Xian Tianwu's entire body twitched as if she had been struck by lightning. Instantly, her entire body seemed to have been petrified. She froze on the spot. The expression of Xian Tianwen changed drastically as a trace of indescribable fear flashed across his eyes. He searched around vigilantly and shouted at the same time, "Who is it?" To be continued. If you want to know what happened next, please log on to www.chidian.com. More chapters. Support the author. Support the original reading. Chapter 786. Inside the tent, it seemed as if time and space were frozen. At that moment, everyone's expression froze completely. The entire space also seemed to have frozen. Whoosh! A burst of cool breeze floated in and broke the stagnation of this space. All the airflow in the surrounding area seemed to have returned to normal as it flowed at neither fast nor slow speed. Suddenly, Xian Tianwen's divine soul seemed to have been hollowed out. A burst of endless fear surged from his heart. Time and space stagnated. Although time and space stagnated, perhaps it was only an illusion. Yet in this case, such divine skill had far surpassed his imagination. Suddenly, Xian Tianwu's 2 bursts of restraining power emitted a burst of piercing squeaking sounds. Explosions kept shooting out from above those 2 bursts of airflow and emitted mottled light spots. The 2 bursts of powerful supreme Dao restraining power kept dissolving at a speed visible to the naked eye. It was as if a piece of silk clothing was being peeled out of a cocoon. Strand by strand, it was pulled out cleanly. The secret patterns of the supreme Tao kept dispersing. The two bursts of power were scattered and shattered. For Wei, Yi, and Zhao Muji, it seemed as if a burst of invisible power was slowly dragging them outside. Xi and Tianwu berated angrily. "Who is it, playing tricks?" She grabbed with her palm, and a burst of purple lightning transformed into a long snake. It shot out from the center of her palm and rolled towards the back of Zhao Muji and Wei Yi. Suddenly, Xi and Tianwen's heart sank as he roared, "Tianwu, do not act rashly." Before his voice had dropped, with a crashing sound, as if encountering a ball of invisible air, that long purple lightning snake was reflected back directly. With 10 times the speed, it went back to bite Xi and Tianwu. The electric snake wound around and bound Xi and Tianwu directly. With just that tightening, a tremendous change occurred to Xi and Tianwu's corporeal body. Her pair of eyes almost burst out of their sockets. Humph! The Heavenly Emperor 8 gates are truly getting worse with each generation. To deal with the sex of the human countries, to kill mortal martial artists, what else can you not do? Xi and Tianwen's throat tightened as he asked with an astringent voice, "Just who are you?" "Who am I?" "Ask this question when you have the chance to see Xian Yuanyang." That voice gave a light snort and already dragged Wei, Yi, and Zhao Muji out of the tent. Xi and Tianwen's chest seemed to have been smashed 3 times by a giant hammer. His chest moved up and down, and his eyes flickered as he revealed a thoughtful look. "This will not happen again. If the Heavenly Emperor 8 gates make a move against the human countries again, regardless of the totem powerhouse of the Xian Yuan clan, I will take care of it myself." After that, the voice disappeared. Suddenly, a loud whistling sound could be heard outside the tent. It sounded like a storm, a shower, a landslide, and a tsunami. The various heavenly forms were churning in everyone's sea of consciousness. All of a sudden, all of the sounds and all of the heavens disappeared in an instant. Everyone hurriedly walked out of the tent, only to see that the clouds were calm and the wind was calm. The Heavenly Emperor camp that was originally full of hesitation and ambition was hit to the bottom of the mud from the distant end by this sudden blow. The originally high morale suddenly fell to the bottom of the valley. After the arrival of this uninvited guest, the news of Qin Wushuang's death and the longing to annihilate the Qin clan were covered with a layer of shadow. Suddenly, the future became uncertain. Looking at His Majesty the Sky Emperor, who was usually high and mighty, but at this moment he looked completely petrified. The leaders of the neutral sects, who had already calmed down, felt a little more worried for no reason. "Let's go in." Xi and Tianwen gave a long sigh and walked into the tent first. Everyone followed him in. Xi and Tianchen asked timidly, "Your Majesty, just what is the background of that person?" From his tone, it seems that he does not even fear the paramount elite warrior of the Xian Yuan totem clan. Could it be that he is deliberately increasing his momentum? "Tianchen, this person possesses extraordinary strength. With my strength, I cannot see through his depth. This person should be an elite warrior of the totem clan, and most likely, he is the paramount elite warrior of the totem clan. The paramount elite warrior of the totem clan." Xi and Tianchen and the others revealed a face full of fear. "That's right, this is my guess. Of course, I am not 100% sure. Who could it be?" The 5 forbidden spiritual zones have 6 major totem clans. There are only 6 paramount elite warriors of the totem clan. Clearly, this person is not the paramount elite warrior of the Xian Yuan clan. Now that the endless Eastern Sea is badly battered, it should not be the paramount elite warrior of the forefather dragon clan. The paramount elite warrior of the endless Eastern Sea is the Golden Ray Dragon King. With the current difficult situation at the Eastern Sea, certainly the Golden Ray Dragon King would not leave the Eastern Sea. Who could it be? The Illusion Heavenly Lake, the Heavenly Fire's southern border, or the paramount elite warrior of the dark mysterious clan of the extreme North Snow Zone? A ball of doubt hovered above everyone's head. Could it be that King Cicada of the illusion Heavenly Lake? Suddenly, Xn Tianchun said, I think that Qin Wushuang inherited the graceful spiritual bow. The original owner of the graceful spiritual bow is Golden Cicada of the illusion Heavenly Lake. According to this relationship, perhaps this Taoist, Master Wang Chan, will interfere in this matter. It's unlikely. Xian Tianwen shook his head. If Qin Wushuang is not dead, there would be some possibility. The news of Qin Wushuang's death has already spread across the world. Each of those paramount elite warriors of the totem clan are crafty. How could they step out for someone who is already dead? Yes. The other supreme Dao elite warriors also felt it made sense. In the world of the Tian Xian land, each and every movement was related to the word benefit. One would not rise early if there were no benefits. If Qin Wushuang was already dead, why would King Cicada need to exert himself? However, just who was that person? And what was his motive? A ball of gloomy cloud pressed down on everyone's head and made them unable to breathe. A moment ago, the pressure from that person was too powerful. From beginning to end, that person did not even show his form, yet they could not even generate the consciousness to resist. At this moment, suddenly Yan Guinan of the Heavenly Punishing Villa said, Your Majesty, that Qin Wushuang. What happened to Qin Wushuang? A sharp light flashed across Xen Tianwen's eyes as he looked at Yan Guinan. Instantly, Yan Guinan felt his breathing tighten. Stammering, he did not dare to speak. Xen Tianwen fixed his voice and said, Just speak. Your Majesty, I think that for Qin Wushuang being swallowed by the space crack, could it be fake news deliberately spread by the Golden Ray Dragon King? Or could it be that Qin Wushuang did not die after falling into the space crack? Impossible. Xian Tianchun was the first one to cry out. When falling into the space crack, an elite warrior of the genuine supreme Dao stage only has a 30% chance to escape. How powerful is that kid? Besides, for a major figure like the Golden Ray Dragon King, it's impossible for him to lie for a junior. Inwardly, Yan Guinan gave a long sigh. Calculating according to common sense, Brother Tianchun's words do make sense. However, for that Qin Wushuang, ever since he stepped onto the path of martial arts, when could he be calculated using common sense? Not even once. Guinan, you mean that it's possible that Qin Wushuang is not dead? Xen Tianwen tried his best to suppress his emotions and asked slowly. This is only my guess. As for the truth, it still needs to be proven. Reasonably speaking, since the Golden Ray Dragon King dared to speak, certainly he must be certain. However, it's better to be safe than sorry. That Qin Wushuang is too devilish. It's to the extent that before I see his corpse, I will not feel at ease. What does this mysterious elite warrior have to do with whether Qin Wushuang is dead or not? Xian Tianchun was unconvinced. Even if that Qin Wushuang is not dead by luck, it's impossible for this elite warrior from a moment ago to know. I feel that what happened a moment ago was only an accident. It's a warning to us when dealing with the human countries. The other supreme Dao elite warriors were also willing to believe this statement. If an elite warrior at that level was related to Qin Wushuang during the battle of the Heavenly Emperor Mountain, as long as he made a move casually, it would be enough to change the battle situation and annihilate the Heavenly Emperor Gate instantly. This was also the worst direction they could imagine. Yan Guinan said, if that Qin Wushuang inherited the immemorial formation, certainly he would have many trump cards and many fortuitous opportunities. Such a person was born bearing great fortune. Certainly, conventional calculations would not be suitable. Your Majesty, for this matter, we must ask the Totem Clan for instructions. Now, Xen Tianwen also lacked confidence. The appearance of that mysterious elite warrior from a moment ago had given him too great of a shock. Tianchun, you guys take charge here. Since that Qin Shaodian is already severely injured, he cannot come out to kill. Currently, no one can threaten you in the Qin clan. I will visit the Xianyuan clan. Yes. Driven by that burst of power, Wei, Yi, and Zhao Muji kept soaring. Two bursts of air supported them and dashed towards the clouds. Senior brother, what's going on? Zhao Muji felt baffled. Wei said with a bitter smile, an elite warrior has stepped out to save us. The two of them looked around, yet they could not even see half a shadow. Ha, you two little guys, take a closer look. This is the battlefield of the aspiring, throne Mountain Qin clan. Take a look, and I will send you back to the human countries. When Wei, Yi, and Zhao Muji heard this voice from the sky, they were stunned. Don't look around, you can't see me. May I ask your name? For saving our lives, we can seek to repay you in the future. Repay? That voice chuckled. There's no need for that. You only need to know that I have special feelings for the human countries. If I have to add another reason, my friendship with Qin Wushuang, despite our age difference, could be counted as one. Junior brother Wushuang. You have a friendship of fellow disciples with Qin Wushuang. Nice. It's a fortuitous opportunity. Perhaps one day, the Stargaze Palace will break away from the human countries, enter the Xian Yuan Mound, and even enter the Heavenly Emperor 8 Gates. This would depend on the future and how it will develop. Enter the Heavenly Emperor 8 Gates. Wei drew a breath of cold air. This senior's words were simply too shocking. In these years, due to the appearance of junior brother Wushuang, the Stargaze Palace had indeed soared. Indeed, they were able to contend with some of the third-rate powerhouses in the Xian Yuan Mound. However, it was only that. For your information, the strongest existence in the Stargaze Palace was only at the profound Void Martial stage. They did not even have one at the perfect Void Martial stage. Not to mention elite warriors at the exquisite mysterious boundary stage. It's fine if I don't speak, but as soon as I do, my words will come true. The two of you were saved by me, so it can be said that there is some fate between you two. I will use my supreme divine skills to baptize your body and strengthen your muscles and bones. In 10 years, you will know whether my words today are false or not. After he had finished speaking, suddenly, Zhao Muji and Wei Yi's body were covered by a burst of colorful lights. To be continued. If you want to know the future, please log on to www.chijian.com. There are more chapters. Support the author. Support the original reading. Chapter 787. This light covered the two of them and dragged them into the clouds to avoid everyone's line of sight. Instantly, it seemed as if countless doors had been opened to the bones of Wei, Yi, and Zhao Muji. Bursts of air kept pouring into their body and started to refine their body. Naturally, this process was like purgatory. Wei Yi and Zhao Muji only felt as if countless acupoints had been dug out from their entire body. Their entire body seemed to be split apart, and countless devils came to snatch their bodies. This process lasted for an unknown amount of time. It made these two hover between life and death a few times. When they woke up slowly, they found that their bodies were wrapped by a thin layer of light. They were like larvae wrapped in a cocoon, waiting to break out of the cocoon and become a butterfly. This light floated in the sky. That voice sounded again. Since I have given you this fortune, it will depend on your hard work. This great divine skill has changed your fate. Even the disciples of the Heavenly Emperor 8 Gates may not be on par with you. Take care of yourselves. Senior, thank you for giving us this fortune. While these two were feeling excited, that voice had already disappeared. When these two looked at the terrain again, they found that they were already at the edge of the Xian Yuan Mound and close to the dispersed praying mountain. These two dropped down from the clouds and sensed their Dantian stage. Zhao Muji was greatly surprised when he tried. Senior brother, how come I feel that my entire body has been reborn? Senior brother, you seem to have become more mature and have a better temperament. Apparently, Wei Yi also realized this point as he sighed with emotion. It seems that Senior has indeed given us a great fortune. Zhao Muji was also extremely excited. Senior brother, don't you think this is a blessing in disguise? Wei Yi gave a long sigh. We must thank junior brother Wushuang for this. That senior was willing to make an exception because of his friendship with junior brother Wushuang. I feel that my training potential and bone structure are at least 10 times better than before. Zhao Muji nodded. Yes, I also have this feeling. That senior said that with our hard work, in 10 years, the Stargaze Palace will have hope to enter the Heavenly Emperor 8 gates. I don't know if this is true or not. Wait, he said, this senior is so mysterious, he most likely won't deceive us. To enter the Heavenly Emperor 8 gates, we must have at least elite warriors of the Supreme Tao. Could it be that senior meant that we have the hope to climb to the Supreme Tao stage in 10 years? It had to be said that this sounded like a myth. Their current cultivation was already considered heaven-defying in the human countries. However, when placed in the Xian Yuan Mound's forbidden spiritual zone, he could only be considered as having an average strength. Young people at their level could be found in the Xian Yuan Mound. Entering the Supreme Tao in 10 years was simply a fool's dream. However, after this baptism, their talents had undergone an earth-shattering change. Their cultivation speed had definitely increased by several times. Not to mention whether or not he could ascend to the Supreme Tao, the exquisite, mysterious realm was definitely worth a try. Thinking of this, their eyes flashed with joy. Both of them entered the dispersed praying mountain and headed towards the human countries. They wanted to meet their fellow disciples as soon as possible and report this good news to the 5 palace masters. If the Stargaze Palace could truly enter the Heavenly Emperor 8 gates one day, they would not need to look at people's eyes like they were now. This was something they did not even dare to think about in the past. Currently, it had become a reality they could pursue. Of course, they must thank one person for all of this. That was Qin Wushuang. To the Stargaze Palace, Qin Wushuang was a deputy general. Outside the Xian Yuan Great Palace of the Xian Yuan Mound, Xian Tianwen did not even dare to make a sound. He waited quietly for the summons of the Xian Yuan elite warriors. Outside the Xian Yuan Great Palace, even as the Heavenly Emperor, he would not dare to neglect. To put it bluntly, in the end, Xian Tianwen was only a butler of the Xian Yuan clan. When a butler arrived at the territory of the true ruler of the Xian Yuan Mound, how could he dare to act presumptuously? Xian Tianwen's head was filled with questions and fear of the unknown elite warriors. This made him restless. He must inquire about it from the Xian Yuan clan. Of course, he would not dare to find Xian Yuan Wei. Initially, when Xian Yuan Wei bestowed him with a Nirvana heavenly plow, he already made it clear that if he could not destroy the Qin clan, then he should not find him. If he went to find him, most likely Xian Yuan Wei would kill him. Xian Yuan Wei was the number 3 elite warrior at the Xian Yuan clan. It would be more than enough for him to kill Xian Tianwen. Suddenly, a giant bell outside the Xian Yuan Great Palace rang with a rumbling sound. A clear voice emerged. Xian Tianwen requests an audience. Upon hearing the words, Xian Tianwen finally dared to lift his feet and walk towards the door. A young boy led Xian Tianwen to walk into the great palace. Along the way, the richly ornamented and majestic buildings gave one a sense of solemn atmosphere. When he walked into the palace, one person stood there. That person had a tall and straight figure, as if a mountain had stopped there. Between his movements, there was a feeling of being as lofty as the abyss. It's an honor to meet the totem elite warrior. Xian Tianwen immediately went up to salute. Anyways, Xian Tianwen, you would not have come to the palace without a reason. What business do you have with this trip? Xian Yuan Yang was not overbearing as he asked with an indifferent tone. Sir Yang, I have come today because I have a great doubt. Instantly, Xian Tianwen narrated everything that had happened in full detail. When Xian Yuan Yang heard the end of the story, his brows moved slightly and a slightly displeased expression flashed across his face. He gave a slight snort. Xian Tianwen, your Heavenly Emperor Gate is becoming more presumptuous. The grudge between the Xian and the Qin clan can be ignored by the Xian Yuan clan. However, your Heavenly Emperor Gate has repeatedly caused trouble at the human countries. Could it be that you truly feel that the Xian Yuan Mound does not have enough troubles? Xian Tianwen felt apprehensive inwardly as he was locked by Xian Yuan Yang's gaze. Each pore of his entire body felt endless pressure. He moved his lips yet did not dare to speak a single word. Sir Yang, this time, we did not make a move at the human countries. Those martial artists left the human countries and moved at the endless eastern sea. Could it be that when the martial artists of the human countries arrived at the endless eastern sea, they no longer have the identity of the human countries? Xian Yuan Yang asked with displeasure. Yes, yes, Excellent Tianwen kept answering. Anyways, for this matter, I will not settle it with you. Since that elite warrior already spoke, if there's a next time, your Xian clan should be prepared to bear the consequences. This time, Excellent Tianwen was truly somewhat fearful. He realized that Xian Yuan Yang was not joking with him and was not speaking alarmist words to scare him. If there was a next time, certainly the consequences would be severe. He asked carefully, Sir Yang, just who is that mysterious elite warrior? From his tone, it seems that the paramount totem elite warrior did not receive the respect he deserved. Xian Yuan Yang shot a meaningful glance at Xian Tianwen. How could he not hear that Xian Tianwen's words were somewhat harboring evil intentions to sow discord? Instead, he revealed a disdainful smile. Xian Tianwen, that mysterious elite warrior, is not someone you can understand at your level. He also has enough qualifications to not respect anyone in the Tianxian land. Of course, it's not difficult to gain his respect. Additionally, the benefits of gaining his respect are self-evident. Unfortunately, your Xian clan is destined to not gain his respect. Instantly, Xian Tianwen's complexion turned deathly pale. Anyways, I will not threaten you. Since that elite warrior did not pursue it, it means he will not care about it this time. However, if there's a next time, I can tell you responsibly that not only will the Xian Yuan Mound not protect you, they will take the initiative to make a move and punish you. By that time, their thunderous methods are not something your Xian clan can bear. Xian Tianwen shuddered with fear and trepidation when he heard this. Even his breathing became hurried as he mumbled, Could it be the legendary controller? There really exists a controller. Suddenly, Xian Yuan Yang's gaze was like lightning. Xian Tianwen, you don't need to ask about things you shouldn't. Your Heavenly Emperor 8 Gates will be treated equally by the Xian Yuan clan. Regardless of fighting or unity, it's your own fortune. The Xian Yuan clan will not play favorites. However, you must not delay the Heavenly Emperor election in 15 years. By that time, we will wait and see who will be the ruler of the Heavenly Emperor Mountain. Xian Tianwen felt somewhat pressured inwardly, yet he nodded in response. Sir Yang, I understand. Haha, it's good that you understand. Xian Yuan Yang waved his hand. All right, I have answered your doubts. At least, you do not need to worry about that elite warrior doing anything to you. In fact, this is not what you need to worry about. Xian Tianwen raised his head in surprise and looked at Xian Yuan Yang with astonishment. However, Xian Yuan Yang lowered his brows slightly, as if he had not spoken a word. One could not see any hint from his expression. However, these words filled Xian Tianwen's head with questions. Who was Xian Yuan Yang? Without a doubt, he was the #1 figure of the Xian Yuan clan and the ruler of the entire Xian Yuan Mound. For sure, each of his words contained a profound meaning. It was impossible for him to speak without a target. Could it be that these words contained some hints? Xian Tianwen wanted to ask, yet he saw Xian Yuan Yang's indifferent expression. Clearly, he did not plan to speak anymore. He could only bow. Then I will take my leave. The Heavenly Emperor election in 15 years will not disappoint the totem elite warriors. Xian Yuan Yang only nodded slightly, as if he had entered a meditative state. He no longer opened his eyes. Inwardly, he thought, will not disappoint the totem elite warriors? I am afraid it will be somewhat difficult. Under the guidance of the boy, Xian Tianwen walked out of the Xian Yuan Great Hall. Feeling disappointed and frustrated, he left the forbidden place of the Xian Yuan clan. Just when he was about to activate his divine skill and head back, suddenly a burst of powerful power swept over from behind. It was Xian Yuan Wei. There was a trace of disdain from the corner of Xian Yuan Wei's mouth. He looked down at Xian Tianwen from above and said coldly, Xan Tianwen, you have acquired my nirvana heavenly plow, yet you still cannot destroy the Qin. You truly disappoint me. You also lost Qin Wushuang and let that kid go missing at the endless Eastern Sea. God knows whether or not the forefather dragon clan took the graceful spiritual bow and claimed that Qin Wushuang was swallowed by the space crack. Sir Wei, I already tried my best, but anyways, I don't want to hear your explanation. I only want to give you 4 words. Take care of yourself. When Xian Yuan Wei said this, he flicked his sleeve and was about to leave. Suddenly, he seemed to have remembered something as he stopped his footsteps. Do you still remember when you were outside my bamboo house? I used the axe to chop the firewood? Now think about it. What do you think? Sir Wei, Xian Tianwen's chest shook violently as if he had realized something. Today should not be this late. Perhaps the gods want to test old bull. My son got cold and vomited. After being tossed around for half a day, he finally fell asleep. Ah, such a big child is the most troublesome. All parents in the world have a pitiful heart. I will not complain, since I promised everyone to update 5 times. Regardless of how late I stay up, I must complete it. This is the last craziness of this month. To be continued. If you want to know the future, please log on to www.chijian.com. More chapters. Support the author. Support the original reading. Chapter 788. When Xian Tianwen thought back, Xian Yuan Wei's abrupt movement was incredibly strange. For an elite warrior like Xian Yuan Wei, he used the axe to chop firewood. His movements seemed to be awkward, and it seemed to be strenuous. Thinking about Xian Yuan Wei's warning to him to not underestimate the Qin clan, a major sect with tens and thousands of years of history, Xian Tianwen said with astonishment, "At that time, did you remind me that it's not easy to deal with the Qin clan?" Xian Yuan Wei gave a long sigh. Up to this point, you only understood the tip of the iceberg. Anyways, I will tell you. My axe move at that time was to tell you that when dealing with the Qin clan, you must aim to kill them in one move. Even if you have to pay the price, you must aim for a quick battle. The more you drag it out, the more disadvantageous it will be for you. The other layer of meaning is for you to take down Qin Shaotian by beheading him. Without Qin Shaotian, the Qin clan will be in a state of disunity and will not amount to anything. Xian Tianwen was speechless and felt somewhat wronged inwardly. What's the use of you saying these things now? Why did you pretend to be an elite warrior and not to speak clearly? If you had told me directly, how could there be today's situation? Of course, he only thought about these words inwardly. As for his mouth, even if he had 100 guts, he would not dare to speak it before Xian Yuan Wei. With a profound gaze, Xian Yuan Wei looked to the east. The endless Eastern Sea announced to the world that the Golden Crow is resurrected. I don't know if it's true or not. I am afraid they are creating momentum for them to acquire the graceful spiritual bow. Did the forefather dragon clan truly acquire the graceful spiritual bow? Xian Tianwen could not refrain himself from asking. Xian Yuan Wei gave a snort. I guess most likely. Xian Tianwen was not interested in who had the graceful spiritual bow. In fact, he hoped that the forefather dragon clan had already acquired the bow. In that case, at least it could prove 2 points. Most likely, Qin Wushuang was dead. Even if he did not die from the space crack, most likely he was killed by the forefather dragon clan. Whoever took away the graceful spiritual bow would not have much effect on the Heavenly Emperor Gate. As long as it was not in the hands of Qin Wushuang, it would be good news. As long as Qin Wushuang was dead, it would be great news. Carrying some doubts, Xian Tianwen rushed back to the aspiring Throne Mountain battlefield. Endless whirlpools swirled around Qin Wushuang and attacked Qin Wushuang. Each wave of power was filled with a wild, twisting feeling. Qin Wushuang almost felt that his body was about to fall apart. This irregular twisting power seemed to treat his body as a ball of dough and was kneading it viciously. Qin Wushuang finally understood why spatial rifts were so terrifying. It turned out that when he was in this spatial rift, he had no possibility of controlling his body at all. He could only go with the flow, like a kite with a broken string. He had completely lost control of his fate. However, no matter how wild the devouring power was, it was unable to break through Qin Wushuang's physical body. Qin Wushuang's body seemed to be in the endless starry sky, drifting in the vast turbulence of the universe, completely unable to control his own fate. Since his debut, Qin Wushuang had experienced countless life and death crises, but never once had he been completely unable to control his own fate like today. He did not know where the turbulence of this spatial rift was going to send him. Qin Wushuang only felt that his body kept sinking, yet his divine soul was still intact and did not disperse. Under such impact, most likely even elite warriors at the Transformation Supreme Tao stage would find it difficult to keep their divine soul clear-headed. However, Qin Wushuang did it. Of course, all of this was due to the supreme molding of the spiritual tree clan. The large amount of divine power the spiritual tree clan had poured and accumulated inside Qin Wushuang's body. Before it could be released completely, Qin Wushuang was swept into this spatial whirlpool. Because of this, the rich divine power of the spiritual tree clan had given Qin Wushuang a great buffer. It had provided Qin Wushuang's body with powerful supplies. Without those extra divine power, even if Qin Wushuang's body had received the supreme Tao baptism, most likely it would have been incredibly uncomfortable. At that moment, the extra divine power had become Qin Wushuang's life-saving talisman. If the grafting divine skill of the spiritual tree clan was to make Qin Wushuang gain weight in a short period of time, then at that moment, it was a slimming phase. Fortunately, the spiritual tree clan had grafted enough divine power, allowing this slimming in this spatial rift to have a good foundation. Even so, Qin Wushuang's body still felt unusually uncomfortable. However, in the unseen world, there seemed to be a wave of miraculous power protecting Qin Wushuang. No matter how wild and turbulent the spatial turbulence was, Qin Wushuang was never completely swallowed up. Drifting like this, not knowing how long had passed, Qin Wushuang finally felt that the turbulence was slowly subsiding, just like the ebbing tide of the sea, gradually returning to calmness. When Qin Wushuang opened his eyes again, what entered his eyes was a very desolate landscape. What entered his eyes was a scene of devastation. Everywhere, there were fallen trees, broken walls, and ruins. Occasionally, there would be some skeletons mixed in. It gave one a feeling of utter devastation. This feeling was as if he had suddenly walked to a ruin after the end of the world. As Qin Wushuang walked, with a careful grasp, he knew that he seemed to have arrived at the bottom of the endless eastern sea. Although he could not grasp the flow of the water waves, the pressure of the surrounding airflow was clearly a few dozen times higher than normal. If Qin Wushuang was not an elite warrior of the Supreme Tao and could use his internal breath to breathe, most likely he would have suffocated to death on the spot. Walking on this desolate land with amazement, Qin Wushuang stepped on places that were either human skeletons or the remains of the beast clan. Limbs, skulls, and bodies were all shattered. Each time he stepped on the ground, he could feel what kind of tragic destruction this land had experienced. What is this place? Qin Wushuang's mind was filled with question marks. Suddenly, Qin Wushuang seemed to have remembered something. He took out the communication jade plate and tried to activate it. A helpless, bitter smile emerged from the corner of his mouth as he mumbled to himself. Indeed, this place has completely sealed off spiritual perception communication. This spiritual perception jade plate is just a piece of trash here. Putting away the communication jade plate helplessly, Qin Wushuang walked leisurely. This place that entered his eyes was a stretch of desolation. Regardless of where he walked or which direction he walked, it seemed to be the same thing. Could it be that this turbulent space has already sent me out of the Tian Xian land? Qin Wushuang smiled bitterly. If that's the case, then it would be a great disaster. In his previous life, he had transmigrated from Earth to the Tian Xian land. If he were to transmigrate from the Tian Xian land to another plane, naturally all the relationships he had built with great effort would be in vain. This was something Qin Wushuang could not accept at all. In his previous life, a sister had made him feel extremely regretful and guilty. And in this life, not only did he have a family, a father, a sister, and a nephew, he also had a fiancée, so many fellow disciples, and so many clansmen. All of these were existences that Qin Wushuang could not part with. No, Qin Wushuang clenched his fists tightly. Regardless, I must see the light again, return to the Xian Yuan Mound, return to the human countries. When he thought here, Qin Wushuang no longer wandered aimlessly. Instead, he began to investigate seriously. He worked hard to find some clues. Only, no matter how hard he tried, it seemed that the scene before him was the same. He could not find any clues. Besides misery, there was only misery. Besides desolation, there was only desolation. What kind of devilish place is this? Qin Wushuang thought. This place should still be at the bottom of the endless eastern sea. It should be impossible to leave the Tian Xianland, right? Only by charging out of the atmosphere of the Tian Xianland and towards that vast galaxy could it be counted as leaving the Tian Xianland. At most, I am entering the core from the surface of the Tian Xianland. Qin Wushuang comforted himself like this. After walking for half a day, suddenly, he saw a cluster of buildings in front of him. Although the walls were broken and dilapidated, he could more or less feel the former atmosphere when looking from afar. That was an extremely majestic atmosphere. Even if it was in a dilapidated state, it still seemed like a fallen king that had lost its majesty. When Qin Wushuang saw that there were clues to follow, he quickened his pace and rushed towards that cluster of buildings. In this place, Qin Wushuang discovered that his power was not restricted. He could use everything freely. This made Qin Wushuang feel more or less relieved. As long as he still had his strength, it would be easy. At least, he would have more confidence. When he arrived before that building, Qin Wushuang saw that at the front of the building, it was clearly the front door of a palace. However, the words on it were cryptic and difficult to understand. Qin Wushuang looked at it for a while and did not know what it meant. He could only roughly judge that it should be 4 words. However, he could not understand the meaning of these 4 words at all. Feeling the majestic presence of this ancient building, Qin Wushuang saw that on the big stone pillars at the entrance of the Great Hall, there were exquisite and fine lines carved. These fine lines were filled with an ancient aura. Apparently, they were the markings of an extremely powerful formation. Only now, these markings were dim and lifeless. Apparently, they had lost the support of the spiritual qi and the formation had lost its effect. Otherwise, these markings would be filled with vitality and contained unlimited power that would shake one's heart and spirit. Qin Wushuang gently touched those pillars and felt the desolate presence of the ancient era. Qin Wushuang thought inwardly, could it be that this place is the residence of the immemorial races? This is strange. That space whirlpool is so tyrannical. How could people live in this place and communicate with the outside world? That's not right. Qin Wushuang suddenly had a thought. Since people live here, there must be a way to communicate with the outside world. There must be a passage that leads to the outside world. Thinking of this, Qin Wushuang's spirit was suddenly lifted. Regardless of whether this guess was reliable or not, it at least gave him a little motivation. He also knew that it was impossible to find a way out in the endless turbulence of the space crack. His body could not move at all under such circumstances, not to mention finding a way out. Therefore, to get out, he had to find a special passage. Did the passageway really exist? If it did, where would it be? If you want to know what will happen next, please go to www.chijian.com. Support the author. Support the original reading. Chapter 789. Passing through the gate, Qin Wushuang walked into the ruins. The ruins were densely packed with buildings, but they were all tilted to the left and right. It was obvious that after a great battle, they were in such a dilapidated state. Qin Wushuang walked inside and outside the buildings 3 or 4 times, but he found nothing. What disappointed him was that there was no sign of life in the buildings, only a sense of lethargy and dilapidation. Inside the buildings, every pillar, every wall, every carving, every Dharma idol was strange and full of imagination. Qin Wushuang looked at the scene in front of him and thought, this place, before it was ruined, it must have been a very prominent place. However, the whole palace, without the support of spirit Qi, is like a body that has lost its soul. There is no sign of life. That's why it looks so lethargic. If there is a strong person who can transform it with great magical power, connect the spirit veins, and wash away the bad luck, it will certainly regain its vitality. Of course, all of this seemed to have nothing to do with Qin Wushuang. What he needed to do now was to find the exit. Qin Wushuang guessed that the exit should be some kind of transmission array. Otherwise, this place was so far away from the outside world, a conventional passage would definitely not be able to pass through the wild space turbulence. Walking out of the palace, Qin Wushuang stepped on the stone steps that extended downwards, but his mood was incomparably complicated. Every detail of the palace showed Qin Wushuang its ancientness and vicissitudes. This made Qin Wushuang a little confused. What kind of desperate situation had he stepped into? The stone steps stretched on for about a few thousand steps. Halfway through, there was a large platform. The platform turned a corner, and below, it was another set of winding steps that continued to extend downwards. Qin Wushuang stepped on the stone platform. Just as he was about to lift one foot, the aura in his body suddenly fluctuated, and the bodily functions that had no reaction at all before suddenly became active. The 5 streams of aura in his body almost simultaneously moved. What's going on? Qin Wushuang was slightly startled. He looked down and saw a circular phantom appear on the platform beneath his feet. This phantom was in the shape of 2 extremes of yin and yang, and it was divided into the 5 elements. 5 different rays of light split the entire circle into 5 fan-shaped pieces, emitting 5 different rays of light. As soon as this light rolled, like a flame, it shot up high and formed a connection with the airflow inside Qin Wushuang's body. Qin Wushuang was greatly astonished. Ever since he had arrived at the ruins, this was the first time he had sensed such a powerful aura fluctuation. Compared to the lifeless atmosphere of the palace, the area he was standing on seemed to be a unique place that was filled with spiritual energy fluctuations. In a place without spiritual power fluctuations, even if Qin Wushuang wanted to use his spiritual consciousness to communicate, it would be impossible. Now that they were here, Qin Wushuang had captured the fluctuations of spiritual energy. How could he miss it? Activating his divine power, he began to communicate with this mystical region. All of a sudden, the surging divine aura formed a complete cycle through all kinds of channels. The ground under Qin Wushuang's feet suddenly glowed with an incomparably enchanting light, as if a large piece of the ground was suddenly about to collapse. Boom! A strong light rushed out, and that piece of ground actually collapsed into the ground. This 5-colored light directly pulled Qin Wushuang into an unknown abyss. This time, there was no spatial turbulence. Soon, Qin Wushuang's feet landed on the ground. A huge space appeared in front of Qin Wushuang. Inside this space, there were piles of white bones scattered everywhere. The state of death was very peaceful and could not be described as tragic. The dried corpses could no longer be distinguished from their expressions before they died, but it could be seen that these people did not seem to have experienced any tragic fighting when they died. Qin Wushuang looked around and discovered that this space was incomparably spacious. The surroundings were filled with jewels and treasures. Swords, spears, halberds, and other weapons were scattered on the weapon racks in the surroundings. Qin Wushuang did not touch these weapon racks easily. Instead, he summoned a spiritual beast and asked, "Jade Rabbit, sense this place. Is there any poison array?" That Moon Palace Jade Rabbit was an expert in using poison. After sensing the surroundings, his expression immediately became serious. "Master, in this space, there is no poison array, but those weapons and treasures are all covered with poison. invisible and colorless. It must be done by an expert in using poison. Can it be removed? Qin Wushuang asked. Moon Palace Jade Rabbit blushed and smiled. Master, your subordinate's cultivation is low. For these poisons, unless your subordinate enters the supreme divine path, I would not dare to touch them. Even if one is in the supreme divine path, when touching this poison, the poison will definitely invade one's soul directly. Its power is extremely overbearing. Master, don't be greedy for these weapons. Qin Wushuang nodded secretly. Good fellow, this is indeed a huge trap. Just where is this devilish place? It seems that although these supreme Tao weapons appear beautiful, I must not be greedy. Moon Palace Jade Rabbit nodded. Master, you are indeed clear-headed for not touching these weapons first. I saw those people died in a strange manner, so I kept an eye on them. It seems that the danger of this place lies in these poisons. That Moon Palace Jade Rabbit asked curiously, Master, just where is this place? How come I feel a burst of extremely ancient presence? Could this be the ruins of the gods? What ruins of the gods? It was Qin Wushuang's first time hearing this term. In the immemorial era of the Tianxian land, there was an era of the gods. After the gods experienced a world-destroying war, they formed the new structure of the Tianxian land after tens of thousands of years. The world was also divided into 5 major, forbidden spiritual zones. Many of the ruins of the Great War of the Gods are hidden deeply and have become the unknown mysteries of the Tianxian land. This place could be the ruins of the gods. Qin Wushuang said with a bitter smile. Honestly, I also don't know where this place is. Master, you are a person with great fortune. Regardless of where you are, you will surely be able to turn misfortune into blessings. Moon Palace Jade Rabbit comforted him. Qin Wushuang laughed. Let's walk and see. If the heavens don't want me to die, I will certainly find a way out. After strolling around this giant space and walking to the center, suddenly Qin Wushuang's eyes shone. It was because he clearly saw an extremely familiar detail. That was the stone platform of the formation, the symbols and secret engravings of the formation. For this kind of thing, Qin Wushuang had clearly seen it inside the 7 deadly arrays formation. It was exactly the same as those transportation stone formations. Qin Wushuang was overjoyed at the unexpected good news. He sat down cross-legged and guided out his supreme Tao power. He started to communicate with this formation. Since he seemed to be familiar with this formation, Qin Wushuang activated it lightly and activated it. An ancient voice emerged. Adventurers, welcome to the first level of the God Discarding Maze, the Scattered Treasure Palace. The next level is the Demonic Palace. God Discarding Maze? Qin Wushuang was puzzled. What kind of place was this God Discarding Maze? Just as he was puzzled, the voice sounded. If you want to go to the next level, please stop if you're not at the 6th tribulation of the Coagulate Supreme Tao stage. Otherwise, you will definitely die. If you are at the 6th tribulation of the Coagulate Supreme Tao stage and do not have a 3rd tribulation of the Transformation Supreme Tao stage to open the way, you cannot force your way in. Otherwise, if the transportation formation is not activated enough, you will be directly transported into the space, crack, and devoured without a trace. What? To go to the next level, one must be at least at the 6th tribulation of the Coagulate Supreme Tao stage, and this is only the bottom line for survival. Without a 3rd tribulation of the Transformation Supreme Tao stage to activate the formation, one cannot go. It seems that this God Discarding Maze is indeed strange. It is not an ordinary place. Qin Wushuang became more curious, but he was also delighted. He did not mind that he could not go to the next level. The problem was that since he could go to the next level, it proved that there was a transportation formation to this place. Otherwise, how could he enter the 1st level for no reason? Thinking here, Qin Wushuang immediately became excited. Indeed, the voice said again, when you come to this place, you cannot turn back easily. To turn back, you must have the power of the 3rd tribulation of the Transformation Supreme Tao stage to activate the entrance of the formation. Or else, when the transportation formation deviates and enters the space turbulence, it will be swallowed mercilessly. Third tribulation of the Transformation Supreme Tao stage. Qin Wushuang let out a bitter smile. Yet he already understood his situation completely. The situation was straightforward. To go out, he must reach the third tribulation of the Transformation Supreme Tao stage to ensure that nothing would go wrong with this transportation formation. Only then would he be able to leave this place smoothly and reach the entrance. Although he did not know where the entrance was, he thought that it must be a safe place. Qin Wushuang looked around and gave a long sigh. It seems that I must stay in this place for a while. Fortunately, in the end, there are some clues. Regardless, I must increase my power to that level first. Qin Wushuang calculated that he had been at the endless Eastern Sea for less than a year. There were still 15 years until the Heavenly Emperor election. Although the Qin clan was in a dire situation, it would be useless to be anxious in his current situation. He could only strive to reach the third tribulation of the Transformation Supreme Tao stage as soon as possible. Only in this way could he ensure a safe exit. Thinking here, Qin Wushuang did not have any doubts. Training was something he had always excelled at. In terms of training speed, Qin Wushuang would not belittle himself. 10 years. It had been less than 10 years since he stepped onto the path of martial arts. He was already at the third tribulation of the Coagulate Supreme Tao stage. This was the result of deliberately suppressing the eruption of his divine power. If he were to release his divine power and let it go, certainly he could summon the third tribulation of the Coagulate Supreme Tao stage. The fourth, fifth, or even sixth tribulation would not be a major problem. Now, he was thinking more about the three major tribulations. To him, who was about to complete the spiritual wood essence, the first 6 tribulations could almost be ignored. Even for the 3 major tribulations, the danger level was only half or 1/3 of that of other martial artists. It could be said that the opportunity and conditions placed before Qin Wushuang were superior. It would depend on whether he could reach the third tribulation of the Transformation Supreme Tao stage in less than 15 years. With Qin Wushuang's own conditions and ability, although it would be difficult to reach the third tribulation of the Transformation Supreme Tao stage in 15 years, it was definitely not unreachable. Of course, Qin Wushuang did not only need to train his power. Now everything was ready. He decided to start crafting the golem puppet. He had captured Xinyu's divine soul, and later on, he had captured 8 divine souls from the hibiscus forest. These were all first-rate goods. Combined with the divine venomous puppet technique, he could completely create 9 golem puppets that had independent consciousness and were completely under his control. In the last hour of the month, suddenly the monthly votes went crazy. Xinghe's chrysanthemum was destroyed. Depressed, in the last hour, there is no time to open a single chapter. However, I hope to get it back. Get it back. After 1 hour, there will be 1 more chapter. To be continued. If you want to know the future, please go to www.chijian.com. There are more chapters. Support the author. Support the original reading. Chapter 790. Initially, even without the scarlet fire and the hibiscus wood, he could still craft the golem puppet. It was because to craft the golem puppet, the fish dragon iron bone was the main material. For example, the yellow essence earth, the first heavenly water, the scarlet fire, and the hibiscus wood were all auxiliary materials. If he did not have them, he could still craft it. Only, if the quality was not high enough, the practicality of the puppet would be affected. Now, with all 5 materials, it would be the most ideal. Especially since Qin Wushuang had congealed the scarlet fire, it would be extremely helpful in crafting the golem puppet. The best part was that for this golem puppet, if he were to fill in a divine venomous puppet soul as a primer, it would definitely serve as the finishing touch. The great golem puppets, which were controlled by a divine soul, but were completely under his control, were the most terrifying and also the most powerful. Or else, if he only relied on Qin Wushuang's own divine soul to control the golem puppet, at most he could only unleash an ordinary effect. On the battlefield, most of the time, it could only be used as a smokescreen and would not serve as a helper. However, if there was an independent divine soul to maintain the golem puppet, it would be a different story. Therefore, to Qin Wushuang, the crafting of this golem puppet would also be a major task for the next 10 years. This time, regardless of the changes in the outside world, he would not hesitate to go out. Qin Wushuang knew that only by becoming more tyrannical with his own strength, it would be the eternal truth. Countless experiences had already proven that it was unreliable to entrust one's fate to others. No matter if it was a person or a clan, the only thing that could be relied on was oneself, the unyielding spirit in one's heart, and the explosive spirit in one's heart. During the trip to the Hibiscus Island, although Qin Wushuang was trapped, he did not regret it at all. If he were to choose again, he would still make the same choice. It was because when he had congealed the spiritual wood primordial soul at the Hibiscus Island, it made Qin Wushuang fully realize the importance of this spiritual wood primordial soul to his future training. Therefore, Qin Wushuang was extremely grateful to the spiritual tree clan. On the other hand, inside the aspiring throne mountain, all the elite warriors of the Qin clan had gathered together. Their expressions were grave. "Sect masters, do you have any definite news?" Ji Huai was the first to ask anxiously. Qin Yunran's face was flushed red. His red beard was sticking up. Apparently, he was extremely anxious. He slammed his fist on the table. "Everyone, the Heavenly Emperor Gate, sent their voice into our Qin clan. Through the information we spread, we investigated it. Indeed, something has happened at the endless Eastern Sea. Third Chief, is Wushuang all right?" Those honored warriors were all anxious. Everyone knew very well that there were 5 or 6 disciples who had gone out. However, the ones that everyone had high hopes for were Qin Wushuang and Qin Taichung. Especially Qin Wushuang. He carried the title of the Ordeal Champion. He also had the glorious achievements of killing Lei Ming and attacking the Heavenly Emperor Gate. It caused the entire Qin clan to have extra expectations for him. Now, the head sect master had used his divine soul seal to seal the great killing weapon, thus slowing down the enemy's attack. The price was that the head sect master had temporarily lost his combat power. To the Qin clan, when the head sect master lost his combat power, besides Qin Wushuang, who possessed the graceful spiritual bow, no one else would have any hope to fight against Exine Tianwen head-on. Even if all honored warriors who acquired the supreme Dao fruit broke into the supreme Dao stage, it would only be a strategic accumulation. In actual battle, if they could not fight against Exine Tianwen's power, in the end it would be difficult to solve the crisis of the Qin clan. Now, unless the head sect master regained his power and Qin Wushuang returned in triumph, they could only solve the siege completely and even counterattack. Initially, after Exine Tianwen returned to the aspiring throne mountain, he was bursting with anger. Towards the Qin clan that he could not take down for a long time, he was also incredibly annoyed. He exaggerated the news of Qin Wushuang's death and spread it into the Qin clan through sound transmission. He wanted to shake the morale of the Qin clan and collapse their fighting spirit. Indeed, this move was ruthless. Immediately, it caused chaos to the deployment of the Qin clan. Those higher-ups also appeared to be in a state of panic. Because of this reason, the two chiefs started to investigate. The result of the investigation made them feel incredibly shocked and pained. When facing pairs of earnest eyes, Qin Chongyang wanted to tell a white lie. However, he knew that if he were to spread a lie now, it would not be a good thing for the Qin clan. Perhaps it would be better to be open and honest. Everyone, according to the investigation, Wushuang fell into a space crack near the hibiscus forest at the rushing current valley. He was swallowed by the space turbulence, and we don't know where he went. Turbulence from the space crack. Instantly, the complexion of a group of honored warriors dimmed. They were all experienced people. The eastern polar region of the endless Eastern Sea was located at the polar region. It was the active area where different spaces were connected. Those space cracks were incredibly powerful. Once one got sucked in, It was rumored that even genuine Supreme Tao elite warriors would not have more than 30% chance of survival. At most, the Transformation Supreme Tao stage would have 10%. For those at the Coagulate Supreme Tao stage, they would almost certainly die. Wu Shuang should have entered the Coagulate Supreme Tao stage, right? Earlier information showed that when Wu Shuang killed He Xinyu of the Qianyu clan, he was already at the Supreme Tao stage. Yes, with Wu Shuang's talent and his luck, now that he's at the Supreme Tao stage, even if he got swept away by that turbulence, he should have a 50% chance of survival, right? These honored warriors all found favorable factors and started to comfort themselves. Yes, now the outside world is spreading the rumor that Qin Wu Shuang is the favored son of the gods who inherited the immemorial formation. If this is the case, then Wu Shuang is a person with great fortune. Certainly, he can turn misfortune into good fortune. That's right. In the end, the space crack is still a space. As long as Wu Shuang does not get lost, he will have a chance to survive. I believe in Wu Shuang. I also believe in Wu Shuang. Each of these honored warriors had become incredibly idealistic. Instead, they ignored the objective factors and firmly believed that nothing would happen to Qin Wu Shuang. In the end, Qin Chongyang was the honorable chief. He also did not wish for anything to happen to Qin Wu Shuang. However, he must be prepared to accept this bad news. Everyone, whether Wu Shuang can return smoothly or not, is due to external factors. For the current Qin clan, everyone must be motivated. Especially you honored warriors. You must speed up your training and strive to break into the Supreme Tao stage as soon as possible. Qin Wu Shuang had seized 4 Supreme Tao fruits from the Illusion Heavenly Lake, plus Qin Taichung had seized 1. In total, there were 5. However, the 2 that Qin Wu Shuang had acquired from the 10,000 Flower Valley were not announced. Therefore, only 3 were distributed to the outside world. They were given to Ji Bo, Ji Song, and Ji Tong. Honored warrior Ji Huai had proposed to give up the Supreme Tao fruit and change to self-training to search for a breakthrough. Currently, these 4 honored warriors were also the elite warriors with the greatest hope to enter the Supreme Tao stage. After a year had passed, not one of these 4 honored warriors had broken into the Supreme Tao stage. Therefore, Qin Chongyang could not refrain from reminding them. Qin Yunran said, I also believe that Wu Shuang will turn the crisis into safety. However, we are a few million miles away from each other. We cannot worry about him, and he cannot worry about us. However, everyone is striving for the same goal. Everyone, you do not wish that when Wu Shuang and Taichung return victorious one day, each of you will still be making progress and wasting the Supreme Tao fruit that he had worked so hard to acquire, right? These words caused each of the 4 honored warriors to reveal a stern expression. They all nodded. Second Chief's words are reasonable. We cannot slack off anymore. Throw away all distracting thoughts, attack the Supreme Tao barrier with all our power, and enter the Supreme Tao stage. Yes, we will pay close attention to Wu Shuang. As soon as there are any movements, for sure we will pass the good news to everyone. Qin Chongyang also encouraged the morale. Now, the Qin clan was holding on with one breath. If this lofty fighting spirit and morale were to drop, the Qin clan would be in extreme danger. For tens and thousands of years, this surge of pride and fighting spirit had supported the Qin clan. It had helped the Qin clan to pass through countless difficulties and get rid of many dangers. Phew! Qin Wu Shuang let out a breath of turbid air with joy. The ancient people did not lie. Training is truly a long and lonely journey. Fortunately, I've still been lucky on this trip. 5 years had passed. Now, Qin Wu Shuang had successfully passed the 8th calamity. Only the last great calamity remained. It was also the 99 calamity. It was the path one must pass from the Coagulate Supreme Tao stage to the Transformation Supreme Tao stage. This threshold was a qualitative leap. Qin Wu Shuang had been wandering here for more than a year. He also knew that this threshold was most likely more difficult than the 1st or 2nd calamity of the Transformation Supreme Tao stage. It was because for this calamity, not only did he need to deal with those calamities, he also needed some enlightenment and accumulation. The leap between two stages was equivalent to jumping from one bridge to another. Certainly, the danger and difficulty would be greater. If one were to walk on the same bridge and follow the prescribed order, the possibility of a problem would not be great. On the contrary, the leap between stages was the most dangerous. Usually, at least 50% of martial artists would die on this ninth calamity. Qin Wushuang was not in a rush. He also knew this. There was still enough time. Now, only 5 years had passed. There were still 10 years before the Heavenly Emperor election. Moreover, these 5 years were not a lot of time for him. From the third calamity to the eighth calamity, the hardships in this could not be described in a few words. The third calamity was still manageable. But when it came to the seventh and eighth calamity, each calamity actually consumed a lot of Qin Wushuang's thoughts. Otherwise, how could it be so smooth? For each stage, the 3 great calamities were the most difficult. As for the ninth tribulation, it was even more difficult. It was the hardest of the hardest. In addition to the leap from the third calamity to the eighth calamity, Qin Wushuang also had a great harvest in refining the great golem puppet. After 3 years of exploration and practice, the final version of the first great golem puppet was finally completed. Qin Wushuang integrated his Xinyu's spirit into it. The great golem puppet was immediately given a vigorous vitality. Now that he had the first golem puppet, the rest would be simple. It was just a repetition of procedures. Qin Wushuang had collected enough materials. In addition to his excellent methods, he saved a lot of materials. The fish dragon iron bone that could only be used to forge 3 supreme Dao weapons was forcibly separated into 9 parts in Qin Wushuang's hands. It was more than enough to refine the great golem puppet. Of course, the great golem puppet was different from the supreme Dao weapons. The supreme Dao weapons used to fight the enemy had extremely high requirements for materials, thickness, and density. As for the golem puppet, the fish dragon iron bone was, after all, just a skeleton. The amount of fish dragon iron bone needed to mold the fleshly body of a golem was naturally far inferior to the amount of fish dragon iron bone needed to forge a golem's fleshly body. Therefore, Qin Wushuang had 9 spirit captives in his hands. Refining 9 great golem puppets was no problem at all. With the remaining materials, refining 3 to 5 more would not be a problem. But Qin Wushuang was not in a hurry. To be continued. If you want to know the future, please go to www.qidian.com. Support the author. Support the original reading. Chapter 791. Time flew like an arrow, and in the blink of an eye, another 5 years had passed. Qin Wushuang had been trapped at the first level of this god, discarding maze, for 10 years. In these 10 years, Qin Wushuang had also walked from the age of 20 to the age of 30. Then, from the age of 30, he had walked to the stage of 30. To martial artists, 10 years of time was in fact a blink of an eye. However, to Qin Wushuang, these 10 years were still fruitful. Currently, not only had he entered the Transformation Supreme Dao stage, he had also passed 2 calamities. He was only a fine line away from the lowest requirement of the third calamity of the Transformation Supreme Dao stage. Of course, Qin Wushuang was not in a rush for quick results. He knew that the third calamity was also a small turning point. 4 elite warriors of the Transformation Supreme Dao stage who had passed the third calamity, they were definitely the number 1 elite warrior in many sections. Across the entire Xian Yuan Mound, less than 30 people had passed the third calamity of the Transformation Supreme Dao stage. Besides the Totem Clan, the remaining few were at the Heavenly Emperor 8 gates. In 10 years, Qin Wushuang's progress was much faster than others, as he was able to go from the third calamity of the Coagulate Supreme Dao stage to the third calamity of the Transformation Supreme Dao stage. In most cases, even for those with outstanding talent, they would achieve results without a few dozen years. After Qin Wushuang had gone through the baptism of the divine power and entered the supreme Tao stage, the advantage of the baptism inside his body was even more apparent. During these 10 years when Qin Wushuang was in solitary training, tremendous changes had also occurred in the outside world. That golden crow wreaked havoc at the endless eastern sea and destroyed many sections. If the first-rate dragon palace didn't have the immemorial dragon formation, most likely they would have been trampled by the golden crow. Golden Ray Dragon King fought with the golden crow 3 times. The first time at the hibiscus forest at the rushing current valley, Qin Wushuang was still present. The golden crow was slightly inferior and escaped in defeat. The second time happened 4 years later. The golden crow made a comeback and reappeared in the world. When Golden Ray Dragon King came out to kill, he was on par with the golden crow. After 7 days and 7 nights of battle, both retreated. The third time happened 8 years later. The Golden Ray Dragon King fought with the golden crow again, but was defeated by the golden crow. When it defeated Golden Ray Dragon King, the cultivation of the golden crow had already reached the peak of the genuine supreme Tao realm. Relying on his immemorial divine ability, he defeated the Golden Ray Dragon King. The Golden Ray Dragon King was severely injured at the cost of a light injury. The news of the Golden Ray Dragon King being defeated by the Golden Crow shook the entire Tianxian land. All elite warriors of the Tianxian land were astonished. Only then did he realize that the matter of the Golden Crow was not a publicity stunt by the ancestral dragon tribe. Instead, it was true. Also, the cultivation and evolution speed of the Golden Crow had finally alerted the totem elite warriors. Therefore, the other 5 paramount totem elite warriors rushed to the endless eastern sea under the call of the injured Golden Ray Dragon King. They could encircle and annihilate the Golden Crow. 2 years had passed. The 5 supreme totem elite warriors, including the Golden Ray Dragon King who had recovered from his injuries, were still unable to besiege the Golden Crow. Through the continuous battle, vividly, the Golden Crow showed signs of breaking the rules of the Tianxian land and soaring to the Galaxia. Only, it seemed that the rules of the Tianxian land had been restricting the final breakthrough of the Golden Crow. Up to now, the Golden Crow still could not break through the final barrier. Despite this fact, the Golden Crow's immemorial divine ability kept recovering. As he practiced, his combat power also kept increasing. Although each of the 6 paramount totem elite warriors were top-notch existences, when they joined forces, they could indeed put the Golden Crow into an embarrassing situation. Despite this fact, it was still not enough to kill the Golden Crow completely. It was because the speed and body movements of the Golden Crow were too defying the natural order. Even when the 6 paramount totem elite warriors joined forces, they still could not compete with the speed of the Golden Crow. The Golden Crow used one move to conquer the world. It used its speed to suppress the 6 supreme totem elite warriors. How many times did it escape with its heaven-defying speed? The situation fell into such a stalemate. The only thing the 6 paramount elite warriors could do was to control the Golden Crow in a certain area and not let it walk out of the endless eastern sea. Although this was something the Golden Ray Dragon King would not be willing to happen, the 5 paramount totem elite warriors had the same thought. However, the thoughts of the other 5 totem elite warriors were strangely united. They did not wish for the Golden Crow to leave the endless eastern sea and flee to their territory. This was human nature. Who would be willing to lead a calamity to their own home? The Golden Ray Dragon King was 1, and the others had 5. With 1 against 5, there was no need to vote. The endless eastern sea could only be used as the main battlefield to deal with the Golden Crow. Or else, if these elite warriors were to let go and ignore it, the endless eastern sea would have to bear the consequences. Regardless, this Golden Crow was resurrected from the endless eastern sea. Indeed, it would not be justifiable to lead it to other forbidden spiritual zones. The Golden Crow could be considered to be the biggest event in the past 10 years. Besides this Golden Crow, the expedition of the Heavenly Emperor Mountain was still continuing. In 10 years, Qin Xiaoyan's divine soul had almost been exhausted. Fortunately, the Qin clan had some foundation and sufficient supplies. It allowed Qin Xiaoyan to still fight against the Nirvana heavenly plow despite being at an obvious disadvantage. He resisted unyieldingly. Currently, Qin Xiaoyan's divine soul seal was no longer enough to completely seal the Nirvana heavenly plow. The Nirvana heavenly plow already started to destroy the underground spiritual ley lines of the Qin clan. Only with the obstruction of the seal, this destructive power was incredibly slow. Without a few years, it would not form an essential destruction. Now, there were only 5 years left until the Heavenly Emperor election. Xian Tianwen calculated that perhaps 5 years would not be enough to cut off all the spiritual ley lines. However, it could open a gap. As long as there was a gap, even if Xian Tianwen risked injury to his divine soul, he would certainly use all his power to break this formation. As long as a gap was blasted open in this 8 desolation and 6 directions formation, the supreme divine warriors from the Heavenly Emperor Mountain would rush forward. The supreme Tao elite warriors of the Heavenly Emperor Party would pour in like the tide. By that time, without Qin Xiaoyan, the main combat power, even with 2 new supreme Tao elite warriors, it would not be enough to resist this tiger-like Heavenly Emperor Party. For your information, there were 13 or 14 supreme Tao elite warriors from the Heavenly Emperor Party. For the Qin clan, indeed, Ji Huai did not disappoint. As he broke through the Heart Devil, he was the first one to break into the supreme Tao stage. He was 1 step faster than those 3 honored warriors that refined a supreme Tao fruit. The time he used was only 6 years. The second one to break through was Ji Bo, the one with the weakest talent. It was because Ji Bo's personality was extremely unwavering. He was persistent, hardworking, and eager to forge ahead. On the contrary, he was 1 step ahead of the lazy Ji Tong and the vulgar Ji Song. It took Ji Bo 8 years to break into the supreme Tao stage. Ji Bo's breakthrough stimulated Ji Song and Ji Tong. These 2 guys that were usually rather careless became courageous after knowing shame. Vividly, they showed signs of breaking through. However, in the end, they did not take this last step. However, in the next 5 years, as long as they had the chance, certainly it would not be a problem for them to break into the supreme Tao stage. Only, for the current Qin clan, even if they had 2 more supreme Tao elite warriors, they would still be in a precarious situation if they did not have strong support. After all, without a few dozen years of accumulation, it would be difficult for the addition of 4 new supreme Tao elite warriors to transform into powerful combat power. Most importantly, under the current situation, the Heavenly Emperor Gate occupied the dominant position and gathered a dozen supreme Tao elite warriors. The disparity in numbers caused the Qin clan to be in an incredibly difficult situation. Of course, after the Heavenly Emperor Gate suffered a loss last time, they would not dare to think about the human countries. Currently, they spent all their efforts to strike the Qin clan. At the same time, they kept a close watch on the Yun clan to prevent them from making any small tricks. In fact, under the current situation, even if the Yun clan were to intervene, the Heavenly Emperor Party would not worry at all. Their current strength was enough to deal with the alliance of the Yun and Qin clan. Unfortunately, in the end, the Yun clan did not extend a helping hand to the Qin clan. Their neutral attitude seemed to be like a boulder that could not be changed. The ones with the greatest gains were at the human countries. Wen Wei, Yi, and Zhao Muji of the Stargaze Palace trained in the human countries. Their strength had advanced by leaps and bounds. Both of them had entered the exquisite, mysterious boundary stage. In 10 years, it was as if they had suddenly grown wings. The speed of their improvement had simply surpassed their greatest imagination. Initially, the 5 palace masters of the Stargaze Palace had been depressed over the matter with Qin Wushuang. However, the defined performance of Wei, Yi, and Zhao Muji had more or less diluted their sadness. For the 2 exquisite, mysterious boundary elite warriors, especially Wei, he had entered the peak of the common mysterious stage directly. In a short 10 years, they had trained from the profound, void martial stage to the peak of the common mysterious stage and had advanced 3 levels. The 5 palace masters were also calm, as they did not spread the news to the outside world. Instead, they asked them to conceal their strength and bide their time at the Stargaze Palace. They were not allowed to go to the Xianyuan Mound. Although the Xianyuan Mound was rich with spiritual qi and had an advantageous terrain, the current situation at the Xianyuan Mound was unstable. Currently, the Stargaze Palace did not have the capital to take the risk. Therefore, the outside world knew nothing about the sudden rise of these 2 defying disciples of the Stargaze Palace. On the other hand, Zhuobuchuan was rather calm. Being the head palace master, he was able to keep his cool. Vividly, Zhongwen, the 3rd palace master, had become complacent since he had produced such a defying disciple as Zhao Muji. Among the 5 palace masters, it seemed that he held his head much higher. Although such complacency did not carry much malice, the other 3 palace masters more or less felt somewhat speechless. Especially the disciples from Tan Zhongqi's line, they felt it was unfair when they saw Zhong Wuyin's proud expression. According to the words of Zhao Muji and Wei Yi, they were able to acquire this fortuitous opportunity because they had touched the light of Qin Wushuang. Although they did not know whether Qin Wushuang was alive or dead, this Zhong Wuyin should not act pretentious before the Tan Zhongqi and the Green Cloud Palace. After all, without Qin Wushuang, there would not be the current Stargaze Palace. Not to mention the fortuitous opportunity that Wei Yi and Zhao Muji had. Of course, the entire Stargaze Palace did not forget about Qin Wushuang. Especially Zhuobuchuan, he had always placed Qin Wushuang in a superior position. On the contrary, Tan Zhongqi was even calmer. He firmly believed that his disciple was a person with great fortune and would never die. Just like the battle at the Green Jade Mountain, the entire mountain had turned into ruins. Everyone thought that Qin Wushuang had died for sure. What was the result? Thus, Tan Zhongqi was calm. He was waiting for his beloved disciple to reappear in the martial arts world. He was waiting for the fate of the Stargaze Palace to rise with Qin Wushuang. To be continued. If you want to know the future, please log on to www.qijian.com. Support the author. Support the original reading. Chapter 792. Because of Wei Yi and Zhao Muji's monstrous performance, the 5 palace masters were also greatly stimulated. Especially for Zhuobuchuan, the head palace master, and Tan Zhongqi, the 2nd palace master. Both of them had achieved a breakthrough and entered the perfect void martial stage. As for the other 3 palace masters, as well as the protectors and Shakyamuni, quite a few of them had also entered the profound void stage. As for the transformation void stage, they were constantly emerging. This was also a form of moving the boat with the rising tide. If the current Stargaze Palace were to enter the Xianyuan Mound and make a dash for the Heavenly Emperor 8 gates, perhaps they would not have enough strength. However, compared to those second-rate forces, it was enough to be on par with them. Before Luo, Tongtian, and Mu Rong Qianji entered the Divine Tao, their cultivation was only at the peak of the common mysterious stage. The strength of those at the peak of Tongxian Peak could be said to be the top of second-rate forces. And once a deity Tao powerhouse appeared, it signified that they had entered a higher level and ascended into the ranks of first-rate forces. In the Xianyuan Mound, initially there were 12 or 13 first-rate businesses. Now, the floating snow house had been added. Originally, because Luo Tongtian had entered the divine path, the heaven-span Taoist sects Fowls and Dog had also ascended to heaven. Unfortunately, Luo Tongtian was short-lived. He was killed by Qin Wushuang, and the heavenly Tao sect fell into the dust. Luo Tongtian, one of the 4 Tao masters, was shot to death when he was chasing after Qin Wushuang. Second brother Luo Henji had already been captured by the Qin clan. He was a prisoner of the 3rd chief Qin Chongyang and had already been killed. The 3rd brother, Tian Mingshan, had also lost his life in the Illusion Heavenly Lakes 10,000 Flower Valley. In other words, there was only one great Tao warrior who had died, and he was the most useless one. In addition, Qin Wushuang had caused a ruckus and destroyed the 9 refined, mysterious Wind Valley spirit vein. Luo Tongtian was unable to recover from that calamity. If the Stargaze Palace were to march into the Xian Yuan Mound now, they would surely become a second-rate powerhouse. However, this was only a comparison of strength after all. In fact, as long as the situation at the Heavenly Emperor Mountain did not change, they could not march into the Xian Yuan Mound. Or else, the Heavenly Emperor Xian clan would not let them have an easy time. They would certainly make life difficult for them. By that time, entering the Xian Yuan Mound would be the same as walking right into a trap. Therefore, to march into the Xian Yuan Mound, one prerequisite must be established. The Qin clan must turn defeat into victory and seize the Heavenly Emperor's seat. Of course, this was for the best. Even if this situation did not happen and the Xian and Qin clans suffered heavy losses, the Yin clan would have charged out and seized the Heavenly Emperor's seat to rule the Heavenly Emperor Mountain. Under such circumstances, the Stargaze Palace could also enter the Xian Yuan Mound. At least, the Yin did not hold any grudges with the Qin and Qin Wushuang. They would not make things difficult for the Stargaze Palace. Inside the Bayou country, the Heavenly Royal City was bustling as usual. However, inside the Royal Qin Mansion, the atmosphere was somewhat depressing. It was because Qin Wushuang had been missing for 10 years. Until now, there had been no news of him. Because of his love for his son, Qin Wushuang did not have the energy to take care of matters related to the mansion. Qin Xiu's concern for her younger brother, Qin Wushuang, was no less than her father's. Not only did she have to bear all of this, but she also had to comfort and enlighten Murong Su. In these 10 years, Murong Su had been living at the Qin clan. Although they had not married, Murong Su had already regarded herself as the daughter-in-law of the Qin clan. She had also gradually walked out from the initial sadness and pain. Her rationality told her that before the truth was revealed, blind sadness would not help. Before the ancestral house of the Qin clan, Qin Lianshan was walking towards them. Just as he approached, he saw his daughter, Qin Xiu, standing at the door. When she saw her father had arrived, Qin Xiu made a gesture and a trace of sadness flashed across her face. She looked back at the ancestral house. "Is Miss Murong inside?" Qin Lianshan asked. "That's right. It's been hard on such a good girl these past 10 years. Wushuang, if you have nothing else, go home quickly." Qin Xiu whispered, and unconsciously, her eyes had turned red. Qin Lianshan forced a smile and said, "Xiu heir, please persuade Miss Murong." Senior Brother Tan, the second palace master of the Stargaze Palace, had sent many letters to comfort me. He insisted that Wushuang is still alive. Qin Xiu nodded heavily. "Yes, father, I also firmly believe that Wushuang is still alive. Many times, when Wushuang had encountered danger, the outside world had spread the news of his death. In the end, didn't he always come back alive? This time, he will not disappoint us." "That's right." Senior Brother Tan said that Wushuang was not someone with a short lifespan. Secondly, according to his speculation, Zhao Muji and Wei Yi had turned misfortune into good fortune because of Wushuang. Behind this great fortune, it could also prove that Wushuang is not dead. Or else, why would the other party do such a huge favor for a dead person? Thirdly, for tens and thousands of years, the Qin clan had faced many crises. Each time, a major figure would come with great fortune. Wushuang was that person with great fortune, the major figure that saved the Qin clan. Although Qin Lianshan's analysis was more or less subjective, one must admit that from some aspects, it did make sense. At this time, Murong Su walked out from inside. Qin Xiu immediately walked up and hugged Murong Su's shoulder lightly. She comforted him. "Su heir, don't be too hard on yourself. Take care of yourself. When Wushuang comes back, if he sees your skinny appearance, he will feel heartache." Murong Su forced out a smile. "Sister, I am fine. I also believe that Big Brother Qin will definitely be fine. He promised me that he would go to the floating snow house to marry me." He wanted those elders of the family to send me off with remorse and guilt. He will come back for sure. Yes, is there any news from Bao Bao and Lone? Suddenly, Qin Lianshan asked. Bao Bao, Lone, and Fire Kylan that Wu Shuang had just subdued seemed to be in solitary training at the dispersed praying mountain. Murong Su said. Bao Bao also said that Fire Kylan has a master and servant contract with Brother Qin. If something had happened to Brother Qin, the contract with Fire Kylan should have collapsed. However, the divine venomous insect contract with Fire Kylan still exists. Although Fire Kylan could not sense Brother Qin's presence, the existence of the contract can prove that nothing had happened to Brother Qin. Yes, I knew it. Wu Shuang had experienced so many life and death calamities, and nothing had happened to him. This time, he will be fine. Qin Xiu had a natural confidence in her little brother, Qin Wu Shuang. Murong Su gave a light sigh. Now, I am only worried that Brother Qin is being controlled by the space turbulence and cannot escape. He cannot advance or retreat. Qin Lianshan shook his head with determination. No, people with great fortune will have their own ways to escape. Unless Wu Shuang is unlucky, or else, even if he is being controlled by the space turbulence, he will have his own ways to escape. Achoo! Suddenly, Qin Wu Shuang sneezed. In these 10 years, Qin Wu Shuang had sneezed countless times. Qin Wu Shuang laughed at himself. It must be that Su Air and Sister miss me. I wonder what changes have happened in the outside world in these 10 years. A surge of urgent desire rose from his chest. This desire drove him and made him want to go out urgently. He wanted to understand the situation of the outside world as soon as possible. He wanted to know the situation of his family, his sect, and the people he loved deeply. Of course, besides this great love of the world, there was also great hatred that drove him to desire the outside world. The Heavenly Emperor Xan clan, the sects that helped the evildoer, the Golden Crow that pushed him into the space crack, and those hidden enemies that could not forget the graceful spiritual Bao. Each day, these hatred accumulated and rose. It transformed into waves of ruthless aura. Combined with the murderous intentions of the graceful spiritual Bao, it made Qin Wu Shuang's entire being filled with murderous intentions, as if he had trained for 100 years in a hellish killing field. The graceful spiritual Bao was originally a divine weapon for slaughter, a divine weapon for suppression. It grew through slaughter, entered the Tao through slaughter, and established itself after destruction. Without great slaughter, there would be no such thing as destruction and establishment. There would be no great order. To reshuffle the cards at the Heavenly Emperor Mountain, to establish great order, they must kill. To reshuffle the cards at the Tian Xian land, to re-establish great order, they must kill. In these 10 years, Qin Wu Shuang had gained a lot of enlightenment. At the end of the day, he had come this far because his strength was inferior to others, and his authority was inferior to others. If the Totem Elite Warriors had not intervened, the Xian clan could not do anything to the Qin clan. The reason why the Totem Elite Warriors could intervene was because they were powerful. They were so powerful that they could ignore the rules and trample on the Qin clan at will. Such suppression had deeply stimulated Qin Wu Shuang's desire to resist deep inside his heart. It had stimulated his deeply buried, ruthless intentions. In both his former and current life, Qin Wu Shuang had never compromised. Suddenly, Qin Wu Shuang gave a long roar to the sky. Like a river that had been silted up for a long time, the anger in his chest was suddenly unblocked. Like a surging wave, it surged out violently. Breakthrough as soon as possible. For the third calamity, I will make it, for sure. Qin Wu Shuang's voice emerged with extreme confidence from his heart. He moved his hand gestures continuously, and like a rainbow, the sword chi of the coagulated sword kept shooting out from his fingertips. Streaks of colorful supreme Dao sword skills were shot out one after another. It was as if there were countless flying dragons dancing in the air, scurrying about chaotically. Following the increase of Qin Wu Shuang's strength, this coagulated sword also kept advancing. Currently, With Qin Wushuang's transformation supreme Dao strength, he could already congeal this sword qi into a supreme Dao sword domain. This sword domain was completely different from the previous sword qi. If one were to say that the sword qi was a linear attack, then the sword domain would be a three-dimensional attack. When he shot out the sword, the supreme Dao power would condense. Under the influence of nature, the supreme Dao would evolve and form a supreme Dao domain. In this domain, tens and thousands of supreme Dao swords would attack together. Compared to when he was at the spiritual martial force, the great power had increased by tens and thousands of times. The coagulated sword, shifting stars, and the power of deep north were the three great techniques that Qin Wushuang practiced the most in the past 10 years. They were also the techniques that he had improved the most. Almost as Qin Wushuang improved, they kept improving. Their potential was endless. Qin Wushuang worked so hard to cultivate these techniques. Naturally, it was also for close combat in the future. With only the graceful spiritual bow, it was impossible to always have the opportunity to attack from a distance when encountering a real expert. Therefore, in the past 10 years, Qin Wushuang also deliberately trained these close combat techniques to improve his fighting ability in all aspects. As for the purple cloud yin-yang wings, although it was only at the second-last realm and was still one step away from the yin and yang tai chi realm, the power of the purple cloud yin-yang wings was not what it used to be. Once this calamity is over, I could go out. Qin Wushuang's thoughts turned, and he faintly grasped it. His mind moved. This third calamity in my mind, I have already sensed it. It's a pity that the divine calamity is not up to me. What I can do is to urge it and wait for it to come. It's really sad. After reducing the number of updates, the monthly votes immediately became very awkward. Less than 100 votes a day. Perhaps this is the most embarrassing time since Xinghe was put on the shelves. No matter what, this month endure. If there's a guarantee, please vote for Xinghe. To be continued. If you want to know what will happen, please go to www.chijian.com. There are more chapters. Support the author. Support the original reading. Chapter 793. The third tribulation of the Transformation Supreme Dao Path was the last tribulation of the three minor tribulations. For Qin Wushuang, it was naturally not a big tribulation. At least, with his current cultivation and realm, it was not a big problem for him to deal with a tribulation of this level. The rumbling thunder was so powerful that it seemed to tear a big hole in the sky. The enchanting electric snakes intertwined above his head, forming an inescapable net. That posture was as if heaven and earth were collapsing and the five elements were reenacted. Qin Wushuang closed his eyes. Strange auras lingered around him. Sometimes it was red, sometimes it was green, sometimes it was white, and sometimes it was yellow. His whole person was like a towering mountain. No matter how the strange phenomena of heaven and earth raged, he remained unmoved. He knew that these strange phenomena of heaven and earth were most likely illusory. They were the inner demons, the demons in his divine sense that caused him to go astray. Although there was a real tribulation of heaven and earth, it would not be so terrifying. In fact, Qin Wushuang's heart was as still as water. Before all the illusions, it was as if he had entered a meditative state and was unmoved. These illusions were continuous, as if there was no end. Suddenly, Qin Wushuang's eyes widened. Suddenly, two rays of light shot out straight ahead. Not only was there no fear in his eyes, but there was a trace of ecstasy. He let out a long roar. Is it finally here? The divine wood original soul was fully activated. Suddenly, a thick green light surged around Qin Wushuang. It was very thick and gave people a feeling of vitality. This form of vitality was endless and vigorous. Even Qin Wushuang was surprised by it. In all directions, wind blades, like wild weapons, constantly slashed toward him. This wind was like a thunderbolt on a clear day. It came almost without warning, as if it had appeared out of thin air. Then behind these wind blades, there were balls of fire that transformed into the faces of demons and demons. They constantly pounced and combined with the wind, forming a very terrifying attack circle. Suddenly, those bursts of cyan lights from Qin Wushuang's entire body surged and rushed out. Like a wave of ripples, it spread out. This green ripple directly swept away the wind and fire anomalies and swept them away. Rumble. With a loud bang, the green ripples swept away the entire space, revealing a clear and bright universe. Ha ha! Qin Wushuang laughed heartily as he looked around him in a refreshed manner. It was still that familiar space and everything that he was familiar with. He had stayed in the god, discarding maze for more than 10 years. 3 calamities. The legendary 3 calamities were slightly simpler than Qin Wushuang had imagined. As expected, the 3 minor tribulations of the divine Tao are the easiest. Even when he was facing the 3 great tribulations of the condensing supreme Tao realm, he did not pass through it so easily. However, the 3 minor tribulations of the transformation supreme Tao stage are completely different from the 3 minor tribulations of the coagulation supreme Tao stage. Qin Wushuang recalled that when he was in the Fusang forest, he had passed the 3 minor tribulations unknowingly. Now that he had reached the transformation supreme Tao realm, the 3 tribulations had more or less consumed a lot of energy. If not for the divine wood origin soul, it probably would not have been so easy. Now, among my 5-element supreme Tao attributes, the wood attribute is undoubtedly the purest. It has already reached the origin soul stage. The fire attribute is secondary. It has condensed into the scarlet fire origin soul, which also belongs to the category of supreme Tao origin soul. As for the other 3 attributes, they have yet to condense into origin soul. Naturally, it was also because he did not have the opportunity to do so. After all, it was not so easy to continuously extract spiritual power of various attributes. Firstly, he had to have the talent of the attribute. Secondly, he had to find the immemorial attribute item that was created by heaven and earth. Lastly, he had to have the ability to absorb and condense. He could not do without any of the 3. The 3 tribulations of the Transformation Supreme Tao stage were the minimum requirements to activate the teleportation device of the god discarding maze. Qin Wushuang came to the core of the teleportation device, and he was very anxious. For more than 10 years, he had developed a strong sense of homesickness. He did not want to stay for another second. According to the instructions, this teleportation device was obviously 2-way. Forward was the second maze. Going back was to return to the exit. Now, Qin Wushuang was curious about where the exit was. According to Qin Wushuang's estimation, the exit should still be at the endless Eastern Sea. It would be strange if it left the endless Eastern Sea. Once again, he initiated his supreme Tao power and activated the teleportation device. Immediately, the entire stone platform trembled violently. Qin Wushuang's body was pulled by this burst of power and left his original place smoothly. With a whoosh, with a flash of light, it transformed Qin Wushuang's body into the size of a mustard seed and swallowed him. It was not Qin Wushuang's first time experiencing the teleportation device. Naturally, he concealed his spirit and qi. He was not distracted and did not have the slightest trace of distracting thoughts. Boom, boom. A few sounds of perilous waves emerged continuously. Next, this teleportation track seemed to slowly enter a normal track. The tremors became smaller and the amplitude became smaller. Slowly, the imposing manner of this formation was like a surging river that slowly flowed into a trickle and dropped down slowly. When Qin Wushuang opened his eyes, the scene before him appeared incredibly familiar. It was the original place of the hibiscus forest. Qin Wushuang was greatly astonished. This hibiscus forest was the source that led to the god discarding maze. In more than 10 years, the changes to this hibiscus forest were rather great. Due to the appearance of the golden crow, The hibiscus forest had clearly become much hotter and more ruthless than before. Initially, that ball of serene and tranquil air had become extremely unfamiliar due to the forced dwelling of the golden crow. Qin Wushuang looked at the hibiscus spiritual tree clan around him. They seemed to be listless and could not muster up any energy. He tried to communicate with them, and the ancient voice of the spiritual tree clan was also incredibly surprised. "Human, you are still alive in the world? Even the space turbulence did not swallow you?" Qin Wushuang was stunned. Could it be that this spiritual tree clan did not know about the god discarding maze? However, why would the entrance be here? Qin Wushuang was incredibly puzzled, yet he did not answer directly. Instead, he asked, "Senior spiritual tree, where is the golden crow?" "Golden crow?" That voice said with a bitter smile. "That vile beast is currently being chased by 6 paramount elite warriors. Its whereabouts are strange, and I don't know where it went. I truly hope that it will never come back." "Even the 6 paramount elite warriors cannot kill it?" Qin Wushuang drew a breath of cold air. "Ah, that vile beast has only recovered 60 to 70% of its divine power. If it truly recovers to its peak state, the 6 elite warriors will not be able to defeat it even if they join hands. Now, it cannot beat the 6 elite warriors together. However, one-on-one, none of them can beat it. A few years ago, the Golden Ray Dragon King was severely injured by it. That vile beast is this exceptional." When Qin Wushuang heard these words, he could not but help but feel some restraining fear. "That's not ordinary. Human, you better leave this place quickly." Now, across the entire endless Eastern Sea, ordinary people do not dare to go out casually. The 18 dragon clans are all hiding in the first-rate dragon palace. How would they dare to come out? Qin Wushuang said with a bitter smile. "If it's a blessing, it's not a disaster. If it's a disaster, it cannot be avoided. That vile beast threw me into the space turbulence. Sooner or later, I will settle this grudge with it." Naturally, Qin Wushuang did not have a good impression of the Golden Crow. The spiritual tree clan gave a long sigh. "You should leave quickly." Qin Wushuang also knew that he should not stay at this place for long. He said, "Senior, for sure I will get rid of the Golden Crow for you. Also, I promise that I will persuade the Golden Ray Dragon King to not make a move against the spiritual tree clan. If you have the heart, that would be the best. However, don't underestimate the Golden Crow. The immemorial demonic beast is not a bluff. When it recovers completely, perhaps the true calamity of the Tianxian land will arrive." Qin Wushuang did not think too much. Now, he could not think too much. The revival of the Golden Crow was no longer something he could control. Now, he was most concerned about the fate of the Qin clan, the fate of his family. "Senior, we will meet again someday." After Qin Wushuang finished speaking, he activated the purple cloud Yin-Yang wings and left the hibiscus forest. He dashed towards the west. This time, his target was clear. It was that Greenwood Gulf, the location of the 5th loop of the 7 Deadly Arrays formation. Among the 4 goods acquired from the 5th loop, he had always used the illusory water wheel. Currently, the Forging Mysterious Record was a compulsory course for Qin Wushuang to practice the Supreme Tao. For the Supreme Tao armor, Qin Wushuang had already given it to Morong Su. It was because he already had a set. On the other hand, he had never used the 2 Heaven Escape books. These were treasures at the bottom of his chest. Qin Wushuang would not use them unless he had no other choice. When he was ambushed by the Golden Crow, Qin Wushuang directly brought it into the space turbulence and did not have the time to use it. Therefore, up to this point, the Heaven Escape book was still intact. Qin Wushuang estimated that the Greenwood Gulf was located in the central area of the endless Eastern Sea. Regardless of whether it was from the Eastern Polar region or the Falling Treasure Gulf, the territory of the Coiled Dragon Clan, it was about the same distance. The sky was clear and without a cloud for 10,000 miles. Qin Wushuang was on the sea and rarely saw such good weather. Therefore, he urged his speed to move at a fast speed. After about half an hour, Qin Wushuang suddenly realized that the sky had darkened. Next, A sharp whistling sound rolled over from all directions like the sound of thunder. As soon as this whistling sound emerged, the sky darkened even more, as if the entire sky was collapsing. As soon as Qin Wushuang heard this sound, he immediately realized that something was wrong. No, this sound. No, it's that golden crow. Indeed, as Qin Wushuang had expected, the whistling sound of the golden crow pushed forward at a fast speed comparable to lightning. In the blink of an eye, it had pressed before him. "Darn human kid, you are not dead yet?" The roaring sound of the golden crow rolled over from all directions like a dark cloud. It congealed into different ferocious shapes like the immemorial giant demons. They clenched their fists, pulled their palms, brandished their swords, brandished their sticks, and attacked with a dark mass. Although Qin Wushuang knew that this was an illusory image formed by the congealed airflow, he could not underestimate it since it had condensed the powerful divine soul of the golden crow. Without daring to neglect, he dashed to the sky with the purple cloud yin-yang wings and opened a path with a graceful spiritual bow in his hand. With a sweep from the sky, a 10,000-meter-long golden light appeared above Qin Wushuang's head. As if it had congealed into a golden figure, it broke through a lump of dark clouds and galloped away without looking back. "Sorry, today I planned the following plot and focus on the setting of the 6th loop of the 7 Deadly Arrays formation. Since I'm about to go to the 6th loop, this is extremely important. I was afraid of the imbalance between power and treasures, so I set it up for a long time. The interval between the 2nd loop will not be too long. An hour or so is enough." To be continued. If you want to know what will happen next, please go to www.chidian.com. There are more chapters. Support the author. Support the original reading. Chapter 794. That golden crow had seen Qin Wushuang's power 10 years ago and guessed that as a human practitioner, there would not be much improvement in 10 years. It did not expect that once Qin Wushuang made a move, his power would obviously be reborn. That golden crow could not help but be shocked. Then it laughed strangely. "Kid, I have underestimated you. The air of the graceful spiritual bow does have some skills. However, you were lucky enough to avoid my first attack. Let's see if you can safely survive my second attack. If you can block 3 of my attacks, I can make an exception and let you go today." When the golden crow said this, Qin Wushuang's heart trembled, because when it said this, it often meant that this evil creature was going to be serious. Once this golden crow unleashed its true power and attacked with full force, it was apparent how difficult it would be for Qin Wushuang to resist it. It should be known that even the Golden Ray Dragon King was no match for the current golden crow. It could be seen how arrogant this evil creature was and how powerful it was. Therefore, Qin Wushuang did not treat the golden crow's words as wind past his ears. He also did not feel that this was a weak threat. Indeed, just as Qin Wushuang rushed out of the encirclement, the density of the flow of air around him immediately increased. Around Qin Wushuang, streams of twisting power continuously encircled him. These twisting powers, following the urgency of the golden crow, also gradually turned from formless to formless. Various kinds of shining golden dharma bodies with various ferocious faces continuously pressed over. It was Qin Wushuang's first time seeing such a powerful aura. He was not afraid. This kind of dharma body that was controlled by the power of the golden crow's spirit was formed. Its attacking power was naturally not as strong as the golden crow's original body. This kind of dharma body was also not a puppet doppelganger. Naturally, its fighting power was far inferior. With Qin Wushuang's cultivation, facing 1 or 2 dharma bodies, he could simply ignore them. And these dharma bodies were terrifying because there were so many of them. It could almost be said that their aura covered the sky and covered the earth. The most frightening thing was that the attack range of the golden crow was too heaven-defying. According to Qin Wushuang's senses, this golden crow was at least 100 miles away. It was obvious how strong the Golden Crow's divine soul was to be able to extend its attack to this place from 100 miles away. What was even rarer was that he could still maintain such astonishing attack power. Qin Wushuang did not linger in the battle at all. He dashed left and right, constantly sweeping away these encirclement forces. It could be said that he was killing gods of the divine Tao, killing Buddha if Buddha blocked him. He only had one goal, and that was to get out of the Golden Crow's attack range. As the golden light spread out, Qin Wushuang held the graceful spiritual bow in his hand, as if it was a weapon that could split the heaven and earth. In his hand, the graceful spiritual bow didn't need to attack, yet it still had the power to split mountains and seas. The golden light cleaved open a passage. He activated the purple cloud yin-yang wings and flew through the tunnel. Pushing his wings to the limit, he quickly rushed to the west. The Golden Crow grinned hideously. "Kid, do you think you can escape after breaking a few of my virtual avatars? Today I, the Golden Crow, will pinch you to death with my own hands. Let's see what other accidents will happen this time." Qin Wushuang let out a long whistle. "Evil creature, if you have the ability, then chase after me. Don't just talk. Don't take it seriously." The Golden Crow jumped up and down after being scolded by Qin Wushuang. He jumped up and chased after him. With a thought, he had already shrunk the distance by a few dozen miles. The Golden Crow was best at speed. Although Qin Wushuang's purple cloud yin-yang wings were very abnormal, and his cultivation base had increased greatly. However, compared to the Golden Crow's speed, he still felt somewhat inferior. The purple cloud yin-yang wings had only reached the second last layer. It was still one step away from the final state of the yin-yang wings. Therefore, once the Golden Crow activated its full power, the pressure on Qin Wushuang was not small. After a few ups and downs, the Golden Crow had already caught up. Qin Wushuang could only feel needle-like bolts shooting at his back. This was not the Golden Crow's attack. It was just the air currents created by the Golden Crow's high-speed movement. They turned into air currents that were as thick as golden needles and did not disperse. If Qin Wushuang had not activated all the powerful protection around his body, the attack of the golden needles would have pierced countless holes in his body. The aura emitted by the divine, what original soul engulfed all these golden lights. Qin Wushuang had already grabbed a heaven escape tome in his hand. He also knew that he did not have the ability to fight against this abnormal Golden Crow. He was already very lucky to be able to escape from the hands of the Golden Crow. After experiencing the strength of the Golden Crow, Qin Wushuang naturally would not be at a disadvantage like last time. Without any preparation, he was sneakily attacked by the Golden Crow and fell into the space crack. This time, he was preparing for a rainy day. As long as there was something wrong, he would activate the Heaven Escape Tome. This Heaven Escape Tome was not an ordinary item. Once activated, the master of the formation said that within a 1 zhang radius, even if Qin Wushuang had to carry a lot of people, he could still use the Heaven Escape Tome to escape without a trace. Therefore, Qin Wushuang was still relatively confident at this moment. Qin Wushuang also did not want to waste his energy. If even the Golden Ray Dragon King could not defeat the Golden Crow, even if he used the graceful spiritual bow at this moment, it would be impossible for him to defeat the Golden Crow. Therefore, he simply did not have the idea to save himself from wasting his divine power and energy. If he did not make a move now, he would paralyze the Golden Crow. One day, when he had great power, he would use the graceful spiritual bow to kill the Golden Crow. Now, he was striking a stone with an egg. The chance of victory was definitely 0. Instead, it attracted the Golden Crow's attention. Qin Wushuang knew that the Golden Crow hated the graceful spiritual bow very much. Therefore, he did not want to use the graceful spiritual bow to provoke this monster for the time being. When the Golden Crow saw Qin Wushuang appear, it was as if it had seen an enemy from its previous life. It had completely forgotten that it was in a situation where it was being chased by 6 Supreme Being experts. It wholeheartedly chased after Qin Wushuang. As it chased, it roared, "Kid, This time I see that you can't escape even if you have wings." To the golden crow, the distance of a few dozen li was simply a sprinting distance. In a breath's time, it had already pressured Qin Wushuang's back. Qin Wushuang looked back slightly and saw a huge golden crow that covered the sky. It had the head and body of a beast and the wings and limbs of a bird. Its face was abnormally fierce, especially the golden hook at the tip of its mouth, which emitted a dazzling and imposing aura, causing fear to arise in people's hearts. That golden crow laughed nastily and opened its mouth. That blood-red tongue, like a big red spring, directly shot out and extended infinitely in the air. Like a big red carpet, it directly rolled towards Qin Wushuang's back with a wave of bitter fishy smell. Qin Wushuang raised his wings and changed his altitude, directly increasing by 100 zhang. However, that golden crow's tongue also seemed to be able to turn at any time. It also turned and rolled towards the sky. This tongue was simply like a ferocious hunting dog, firmly chasing after Qin Wushuang. When the golden crow saw that Qin Wushuang's speed was also fast, it coldly snorted and shook its wings. Countless golden light wings rushed out from its back. High up in the air, the golden light flickered and directly transformed into 18 kinds of ferocious weapons. There were long spears, big sabers, copper hammers, axes, swords, whips, and all kinds of weapons with strange shapes. Every one of these weapons was transformed from its wings and did not belong to the divine Tao weapons at all. Hundreds and thousands of weapons flew over. Naturally, their imposing aura was like a rising tide. When Qin Wushuang saw that this attack was so powerful, he knew that this golden crow was serious. When this imposing aura was suddenly activated, it immediately had a feeling of swallowing the heavens and the earth. Qin Wushuang's heart sank and knew that something was wrong. Without even thinking, he threw the Heaven Escape Tome, and a force shot out from between his eyebrows onto the talisman Eye of the Heaven Escape Tome, directly activating this supreme talisman. In the sky, tens of thousands of rays of light suddenly shot out from the Heaven Escape Tome. The Heaven Escape Tome itself was like a huge black hole, swallowing Qin Wushuang's Dharma body. This huge black hole, like a vast and deep galaxy, directly swallowed Qin Wushuang. It was like a star in the sky, but its location was unknown. When the golden crow saw the appearance of the tens of thousands of rays of light in the sky, it also gasped. What the hell is this?" The golden crow was experienced and knowledgeable. When it saw such a strange thing, it could not help but feel extremely strange. For that attack a moment ago, it was not joking. It had truly used its trump card. It transformed its wings into a weapon and controlled it with its divine soul. Its attack power was extremely impressive. Initially, it was extremely confident to make Qin Wushuang stay. Unexpectedly, as soon as that magical talisman was activated, even its supreme attack could not penetrate it. Such a powerful and heaven-defying power even made the golden crow somewhat hesitant. Just how many secrets does that human kid have? Vividly, the golden crow felt somewhat uneasy. That talisman simply surpasses the genuine Supreme Tao. Even an elite warrior at the genuine Supreme Tao stage could not make that heaven-defying talisman that borrows the great fortune of heaven and earth to escape without a trace at any time. There must be something fishy about this. The golden crow felt a headache as it roared wildly. A burst of anger shook the heavens and the earth. When this roar sounded, even the surface of the endless eastern sea gushed with tides, and waves soared to the sky. Indeed, the golden crow feared the graceful spiritual Bao the most. Initially, when it saw Qin Wushuang, it felt that the owner of the graceful spiritual Bao was too inferior. It did not pay much attention to him, and only wanted to get rid of Qin Wushuang wholeheartedly. Ever since Qin Wushuang had fallen into the space crack, the golden crow rarely thought about this matter. In its simple logic, falling into the space crack would mean certain death. However, a living example was placed before it. The golden crow had to admit that it had failed to predict the enemy. Could it be that kid had a new fortuitous opportunity when he got sucked into that space crack? The Golden Crow thought worriedly. It also knew that once the talisman was activated, the other party could escape for at least a few 100,000 miles. With such a far distance, and not knowing where he was escaping to, of course it would be impossible for it to chase after him. The Golden Crow behaved wildly above the endless eastern sea in anger. Now it was also extremely furious. It was as if that surging tide could not find a vent. The 18 dragon clans hid in the first-rate dragon palace for 10 years. They did not step out of the house. It wanted to go to the other forbidden lands of God, but it was entangled by the 6 supreme being powerhouses and had sealed off its path. Currently, its strength was not enough to defeat the 6 paramount elite warriors at the same time. Therefore, the battle situation fell into a stalemate. On the other hand, Qin Wushuang used the momentum of the Heaven Escape book to dash for millions of miles. In one spur of energy, he arrived at the 5th loop of the Greenwood Gulf Formation. To be continued. If you want to know about the future, please log on to www.chidian.com. Support the author. Support the original reading. Chapter 795. The Jadewood Gulf was extremely hidden. Naturally, it was impossible for anyone to discover this formation. After Qin Wushuang made sure to get rid of all the spies, he entered the 5th loop. All the decorations were the same as before. Without wasting any time, Qin Wushuang arrived before the formation directly. Inwardly, he thought, the master of the formation once warned me that the 6th loop is at the heavenly fire southern border. Before I enter the Supreme Tao stage, I must not enter the 6th loop. Now, I'm already at the Transformation Supreme Tao stage and meet the conditions. I must take a look at the 6th loop. It's secondary whether I go to the heavenly fire southern border or not. However, I must see the fortuitous opportunities of the 6th loop. As soon as Qin Wushuang thought here, he had some ideas. Currently, Qin Wushuang had entered the Supreme Tao stage for more than a dozen years. Naturally, at the 3rd calamity of the Transformation Supreme Tao stage, he was qualified to enter the 6th loop. This 6th loop was also a core of the entire 7 Deadly Arrays formation. The 6th loop was a loop of the Supreme Tao stage that was built on the foundation of the Supreme Tao stage. The 7th loop was the ultimate core of the entire formation. Qin Wushuang remembered that when he entered the 3rd loop, the master of the formation had left a message. The 4th to 6th loops of the formation were at the forbidden spiritual zones. At the location of the 7th loop, the voice left by the master of the formation kept him in suspense and did not explain it clearly. Qin Wushuang remembered clearly that the voice sounded extremely strange. It did not speak in detail about the 7th loop. It only said that it would be revealed at the 6th loop. Currently, the 4th and 6th loops were about to be fulfilled. Indeed, starting from the 4th loop, the locations of the formations were at the Xian Yuan Mound, the endless eastern sea, and the heavenly fire southern border. All of them had been realized. This way, the 7th loop should be an even more mysterious place than the forbidden spiritual zones. Just where would it be? Qin Wushuang was rather curious. Holding the communication J-plate, he thought, should I contact my family and sect first? Then, he immediately rejected this idea. Once he contacted his family, perhaps those elite warriors with great divine skills could capture the movements of their spiritual perception and determine his location. This was something that the great sect master, Qin Shaotian, had repeatedly warned them about. If they were anywhere else, it would have been fine. However, now that they were in a formation, they could not afford to reveal their identities. After all, every part of this formation was very important, and they were all interconnected. If one of the rings was discovered, it would be hard to avoid accidents. If it was discovered, one of the rings would be destroyed. He wouldn't be able to advance or retreat as he wished. Now, every ring of this formation was a transportation stronghold, which was equivalent to a transit station. Although Qin Wushuang had obtained all the treasures and good fortune inside, he was still able to obtain them. However, the strategic significance of this transit station still existed. As long as the links of these formations were not destroyed, they could freely travel between the various forbidden spiritual zones. Once one of the rings was damaged, he would not be able to go back and forth as he wished. To Qin Wushuang, every transition between forbidden lands of God and the human kingdoms was of great strategic importance. Therefore, Qin Wushuang knew that the secrecy of this formation was very important. Inside this formation, Qin Wushuang felt somewhat disappointed and frustrated. When he came, he brought his fiancée and Bao Bao, his two friends. Now, they were far away from each other. Yes, I should seize the time and head to the sixth loop. I should see the situation and understand where the core secret of the 7 deadly arrays formation lies. After all, now that I am going to deal with that heavenly Emperor Gate, each fortune and fortuitous opportunity will be a weight. Although I am at the 3rd calamity of the Transformation Supreme Tao stage, I might not have any advantage when facing Exine Tianwen. The speed of that Exine Tianwen's heavenly Emperor wings is not slower than mine. I might not have any advantage when using the graceful spiritual bow to attack from afar. As Qin Wushuang thought about it this way, he started to activate the formation and head towards the 6th loop. It was still that familiar 5-color divine light. Only, the power needed to activate this loop was the supreme Tao power. Therefore, the light was more dazzling and the power was more intense. Whoosh! The transportation channel brought Qin Wushuang into that mysterious transportation space. Clearly, this transportation channel was extremely defying the natural order. Ordinary elite warriors would not be able to make such a grand move. Each loop of the 7 deadly arrays formation crossed boundaries and at least millions and tens of millions of miles. For such transportation, Qin Wushuang truly did not dare to imagine how many divine skills were needed to complete the structure of such a defying formation. At least, he firmly believed that even those at the peak of the genuine supreme Tao stage could not do it. Perhaps those at the peak of the genuine supreme Tao stage could open up space and create some short-distance transportation channels. For example, the secret channel transportation of the Qin clan, perhaps it would not be difficult for those small movements of a few hundred or a few thousand miles. However, such transportation that could travel tens and tens of millions of miles completely ignored the rules of space. Clearly, it had surpassed the rules of the Tianxian land and stood above the rules of the Tianxian land. For such elite warriors that stood above the rules, without a doubt, they must be above the elite warriors at the peak of the Tianxian land. Now, Qin Wushuang could at least confirm one point. The owner of this formation was indeed more powerful than those at the peak of the genuine supreme Tao stage. It was rumored that the one who acquired this formation could stand above the Tianxian land. It was not a rumor. Currently, Qin Wushuang was unprecedentedly confident. With this estimation, if he could comprehend the profoundness of the 7th loop, not to mention Exine Tianwen, an elite warrior that had just entered the genuine supreme Tao stage for a dozen years, even totem elite warriors at the peak of the totem clan, such as Golden Ray Dragon King, King Cicada, and Xin Yuan Yang, he would have the confidence to fight them. If he could completely comprehend the 7th loop, perhaps he would be more defying than these elite warriors at the peak. Of course, this was only a theoretical estimation. To realize this point, it would not be completed in a day or two. Qin Wushuang knew this principle well. Therefore, he would not think about it now. He must walk the road step by step. He must eat the food one bite at a time. Qin Wushuang's current goal was to comprehend the 6th loop and understand the 7th loop. He hoped that the fortune and fortuitous opportunities of the 6th loop would allow him to possess the capital to fight against Exine Tianwen. Currently, it would be enough as long as he had the method to deal with Exine Tianwen. While he was thinking, the transportation channel had already completed the great transportation task. When Qin Wushuang landed, he was already at the 6th loop of the 7 deadly arrays formation. Overjoyed at the unexpected good news, Qin Wushuang started to observe the formation of this 6th loop. The layout and shape of this 6th loop was no different than the previous few loops. However, clearly, the interior of this sixth loop was filled with supreme Tao presence. The defense of the surrounding area was also covered densely with supreme Tao defenses. If someone were to barge in without knowing the situation, most likely they would be blasted into pieces by the endless supreme Tao defenses if they took a wrong step. Qin Wushuang was familiar with the place. After he looked around and understood the terrain, he returned to the edge of the formation. Inwardly, he thought, this sixth loop seems to have a lot of fortune. He activated the formation and poured in his divine power. That familiar voice sounded again. Lucky one. First of all, congratulations on entering the Supreme Tao stage, the upper level of the Tianxian land. However, entering the Supreme Tao stage is only the beginning. Not to mention riding above the peak of the Tianxian land, there is still a great gap between you and the peak. However, this sixth loop is enough for you to make up for this gap. If you acquire this sixth loop and completely comprehend it, in 10 years, your power will be on par with any elite warrior at the Tianxian land. Unless there is an elite warrior at the Heavenly Supreme Tao stage, no one can defeat you. Qin Wushuang was moved. By comprehending the sixth loop, he could stand in an invincible position at the Tianxian land. This seemed to be more exaggerated than he had expected. Before reaching the seventh loop, he could already fight against the paramount elite warriors without being defeated. Of course, they just cannot defeat you. However, it's almost impossible for you to defeat them. To defeat an elite warrior at the peak of the genuine Supreme Tao stage, you can only acquire the fortuitous encounter of the seventh loop. Qin Wushuang saw the light. To be able to fight against them and to defeat them were two different matters. To defeat them, one would need to have an overwhelming advantage. Qin Wushuang did not desire too much. He knew that he was still young. Being young meant he had the capital. Young man, let's not be in a hurry to tell you how many fortuitous encounters and fortunes there are in the sixth loop. When you reach the sixth loop, your training path will no longer be a field of thorns, and you'll be chased everywhere. You have to understand more mysteries and enter a completely different realm. Qin Wushuang was stunned. Could it be that the master of this formation had already predicted that he would be chased endlessly? Ha! You must be thinking, could it be that I can predict the future and predict that you will be chased endlessly? That's right. Although this seven deadly arrays formation is full of fortuitous encounters, vividly, it contains fortune. This fortune is enough to make you stand out. Regardless of how low-key you are, you cannot avoid too much attention. As the saying goes, the tallest tree in the forest will be destroyed by the wind. Those who inherit the formation, even if the heavens do not envy them, they will envy them. The fortune of the heavens is protecting you, but in the secular world, there is no place for such an exceptional person. Therefore, it would be strange if you were not chased. Qin Wushuang felt it was a miracle as he listened. Vividly, he was filled with reverence towards the fortune of the heavens. From the looks of it, the heavenly Tao was vast and not completely untraceable. Those who obeyed the heavens would live, and those who defied the heavens would die. The human heart could be concealed, but the heavens would not change. Those crazy enemies used all methods to deal with me. Vividly, the heavens are protecting me. Could this be the so-called? Even if the heavens do not envy them, they will envy them? While Qin Wushuang was lost in thought, that voice emerged again. This seven deadly arrays formation is a door I set up in the Tianxian land. Inside this door, I placed the seven deadly arrays formation and gave you some so-called fortune and fortuitous encounters. Outside the formation is the boundless starry sky, the endless Milky Way, and the fortune of the heavens. In the Tianxian land, for tens and thousands of years, almost none could soar to the Milky Way. Why is it like this? When you reach the seventh loop, everything will become clear. For that seventh loop, without the power of the genuine Supreme Tao stage, you must never go. It's best to wait until you have entered the peak of the genuine Supreme Tao stage and the aptitude to soar to the Milky Way. It will not be too late to go then. Vividly, this voice gave out a piece of advice, or even a warning. Qin Wushuang felt apprehensive inwardly. Yet, he knew that the master of this formation never spoke empty words. To be continued. If you want to know what will happen next, please go to www.qitian.com. There are more chapters. Support the author. Support the original reading. You're tuning in to the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.